Hello. Um, I was lagging, but I think I'm fine now. Am I good? Am I good? Am I good? Am I good? Hello, hello, hello. Hello. We're back. We're back with Kenzie Tex. Let's see. I'm taking roll. I do want to just give a disclaimer. I'm not just a Mackenzie Shirilla channel. I know people think that, but I'm not. We cover all true crime here. I just happen to be really into the Kenzie stuff, and I've covered a lot of it. So, hello, welcome back. Shout out to everyone for being here in the live chat, all the replay viewers too. I got a comment that actually made me smile earlier. Somebody said, "I don't know how I came across this live. I don't know who you are." She was like, "But I'm hooked." She's like, "I'm hooked on the Kenzie text messages." And I was like, we have got another one. We've got another one. So shout out to all the replay viewers as well and all the new subscribers. I appreciate all of the support. So please make sure you hit that like button. It really does. I'm gonna keep reminding you guys because it really helps push the channel out. So what do we do here when we read Kenzie text? If you're not familiar, we just basically read Kenzie text where she is a psychopath. And we just have fun doing it. So good times. Please hit the like button. Yeah. I'm gonna catch up with you guys. Let me say hello. I haven't been on for 2 days, so we got a lot to catch up on. Hey Becky. Becky Russo's here. Did you hear about the new documentary coming out? Who's doing it? No, I didn't. Good to see you, Becky. Thank you for being here. Much love to you and your fam. Let's see. Kenzie documentary. Who's making it? Ugh. I might have to take a strike for that and watch it with you guys because it's worth it. Let me look it up. Try to find it. And I'll say hello to everyone as well. Thank you, highly favored. Debbie, Evie, Crees. I know, Jen. I saw you. Good to see you, babe. I'm glad you're back. I was really worried. Ruth, I thought you hated me. Are you Barbie? Is that good or no? Am I better than Kenzie or no? Did you get a chance to email? No, I did not. I'm on a fasting diet, actually. It will be Netflix. I think it will be called The Crash. No, Becky, don't tell me this. Please don't. Really? Oh, you're right. Becky Russo in the chat. Just let me know. There's a documentary on Netflix. You're right. Why am I not in the documentary? Just kidding. But I mean, a lot of us who should read it, who have gone through all of this should be. Hey Ruth, good to see you. Love you too. Shout out to you, Ruth. Hi, Rudy. Rudy said, "Melly, why are you so funny?" My eyes. On the morning of July, okay. May 15th. May 15th. It's produced by Rebecca North and Johnny Taylor. It's called The Crash. I'm curious, Becky. Did you guys get permission? Like, was the family involved or no? We'll have to stay up on that. I want to watch it with you guys. Ooh, that'll be. Well, I won my last appeal with Netflix. They tried to dock me when I did I don't know if you guys are familiar with The Perfect Neighbor. What's her name? I'm spacing it. It'll come to me. I got dinged with them, so but I won. I ended up winning. Suzanne Lawrence. So I don't know. I would want to cover that Kenzie documentary on here. Can we watch it live? I'm caught up on your shorts. Okay, I'm dropping a bunch more, probably tonight. Let's get into the text message. We'll have to look into the documentary. No, 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 you can't play any Netflix content, even with fair use. My sister told me Dom's sister told me last year she did a new interview, but I'm not sure if it was. Oh, I'm sure they must have reached out. Um, Becky, let's get started. Wow. Okay, yeah. Um, I'm just a little iffy on documentaries sometimes. I don't love them, and I don't love when movies are made from books either because I'm a big book reader. So a lot of times there's changes, and I don't want something to come out on this case that isn't accurate. And we have read all the court documents here. We've read all the police reports, body cam. I mean, we're going through the text messages tonight, for heaven's sakes. Um, Speaking of, let me pull them up. Yeah, this is good. Hello, Berrywood. Good to see you, love. Good to see you because it's better than nothing. I don't like them much. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, The Perfect Neighbor was no, it was Suzanne Lorensk. You might be thinking of another one. There's similar ones. Okay, let's get started. We left off on September 2nd with the text messages. Kenzie says, "Sleep good, babe." Yeah, this is where we left off. September 1st, 2020 at 9:41 a.m. Kenzie says, "You post before you tell me. Good morning. What's up, babe? Why does he need your permission, Kenzie? Like, I don't get it." Um, she says, "What's up, babe?" at 9:41 a.m. Dom says, "Nothing much, taking a shit." Kenzie says, "I'm doing school right now." Boring AF. He says, "I could come chill." She says, "Oh my God, really? That would be so fun. My next period, lunch too." Dom says, "Okay, I'll see what's up and what I gotta get done. I don't know if I'll come because I'm not showered or anything." Kenzie says, "Okay, babe," at 10:08 a.m. 11:12, she says, "Someone swiped up on my story and just recorded them make and just recorded themselves making weird ass sounds." Dom says, "What story?" She says, "My snap." Sends, I think she sends a post, a Google post. She says, "Should I do my nails like that?" Dom says, "That's cool." She sends more pictures. She says, "Pick one." She says, "Are you still on the phone?" Dom says, "Yeah." She says, "When you're off, call me." Dom says, "Okay." She says, do you want to go with me?" He says, oh, she did a typo. She says, "Never mind, I meant go with me. Do you want to go with me to get my nails done?" Dom says, "I probably can't." She says, "Why not?" Dom says, "Me and Smeesh still talking. Also got to run a couple places." She says, "My school is over. Can you please try to text me a little bit more often?" What do you mean by a little bit more often? Like, you mean every second? Because he already texts you all the time. Um, she says, "Can you try to text me a little more often at 2:35 p.m.?" He says, "Yeah, I've been a little busy today." She sends more pictures for her to get her nails done. Oh, did I put the comments up on the screen? My bad. She says, sends more Google screenshots. She says, "Please help. What you think?" Dom says, "Second or third." She says, "I was thinking the first one." Because why do you ask then? Like, don't ask. Just pick what you want to do. Dom doesn't give a shit what you do with your nails. She says, "But I don't know." Dom says, "First, too much." She says, "I can get any color flame." Dom says, "I don't know. It's hard." She says, "I'm stressing." She says, "I think I'm gonna get black French tip. What you think?" Dom says, "That sounds dope." She says, "I'm scared. I never got something like that before." She says, "I'm going right now." He doesn't respond. She says at 6:08 p.m., "You're so ass at replying. Like, it's been 2 hours." He doesn't respond. She says, "Okay." Dom says, "I've been doing shit, babe." He says, "What are you doing now?" She says, "I'm on my way home. Do you want to hang?" "I just got my nails done." Dom says, "I was about to get food with Angelo and Smeesh." "Let me see your nails." She says, "Oh, what food are you getting?" She says, "And are we not hanging today?" She says, "I set my nails on Insta." Dom says, "No, we probably can hang later. Kyle wants to do a porch sesh, so we should stop there." Kenzie says, "Oh, all right. Scoop when you're free, babe." He says, "Okay, babe," at 6:56 p.m. 7:16 p.m. She says, "What are you doing now?" "What food are you getting?" "You've been taking over 10 minutes or more to reply all day." 10 minutes. 10 minutes is all he got. Wow. Such a long time. Being sarcastic. Um, he says, "What's up?" She says, "Don't send me pre-typed messages." Dom says, "It's not. I typed that." She says, "It is. It didn't say read." Dom says, "I pre-typed it." Kenzie says, "You know what's up if you read the message. You would know what's up if you read the message." Dom says, "I'm eating food." She says, "Where? And when will you be home?" He says, "Rosewood." He says, "Our dinner should be here." She says, "Bruh, never mind." He says, "What?" At 7:49 p.m. "I'm home now." He says at 8:40. She says, "Scoop me." He says, "I'm already here. Can I scoop in 10?" She sends a little sideways face. "Let me see if my mom can just take me." Dude, he said he would scoop you in 10 minutes. Why do you have to ask your mom to take you? Just wait 10 minutes. He says, "Click the link to add as a friend." Oh, some game. So they were playing some game. Jumps to the next morning at 9:33 a.m. "Morning, babe." He says, "Morning, baby." She says, "I'm doing math right now. It's so hard." She says, "Dom," at 11:42 a.m. He says, "What's up?" She says, "Who are you smoking with?" He says, "Bard." She says, "What are you doing today?" Kenzie says, "Want to hang with Kristen and Kyle?" Dom says, "I gotta be up with big guy." He says, "I don't know." Kenzie says, "Would you be able to come over tomorrow and sit with me and help me with math? Please?" He says, "Probably." She says, "How's dinner going?" At 6:48 p.m. He says, "Not there yet." He says, "Everything's great." She says, "Oh, that's good. Are you guys going to Square 22?" Dom says, "Yeah, LOL." She says, "When will you be home, babe?" He says, "We're still eating, then we're going back to Kyle's." He said, "Sorry, today is important." She says, "It's all good. Just let me know when I can come over." At 7:51 p.m. He says, "Okay, babe." She says, "How long?" At 9. He says, "No idea. Dinner's almost over." He says, "Need to talk soon." She says, "Oh, okay. How was your food, babe?" She says, "Are you free?" At 10:19 p.m. Question mark, question mark, question mark. He says, "No, we're still talking." He says, and then it jumps to 11:22 p.m. He says, "I'm home." She says, Forget tomorrow. Come at 11:30." He says, "Okay." He says, oh wait, it jumps to the next morning. She says, "Come at 11:30." So then it jumps to 7:50 a.m. He says, "Okay." He says, "I'm not ready though." She says, "What do you mean you're not ready?" At 8:01 a.m. "The test is today at 12. My camera has to be on in my mic, so you have to sit away from the camera so you're not in the frame, but close enough so you can see the questions. And when you're done with the question, you're gonna slide me a notebook. I hope this works." He says, "I'm not gonna know them." She says, "Well, I'm not going to Polaris. This sucks." He says, "'Cause I can't do a test for you?" She says, "I needed someone to help me with math." Oh, so she wants Dom to do her work for her and help her. Cheat. He said, "Good thing." She says, I need someone to help me with my math. Dom says, good thing, Kenz. Let's see where this takes you. She says, why are you being rude? Dot, dot, dot. Like I'm stressed as shit about school and you're going to say that? I asked you for help and you said, yes, you could help. Like you told me not to go to Andrew for help because you can help me. He doesn't respond. She says, like, I could just pay him to come here and take the test. He doesn't respond. So you're telling me you're not going to know any of the answers? This is so bad, for real. Dom says, I was saying I can help you study for the test, not do it for you. She says, OMG, I'm literally so effed. F my life. You don't even care enough to reply. He says, you didn't make it very clear. If you told me I'm taking a whole final for you, I would have said no. I thought it was just a regular test. Kenzie said, it's 40 questions. I've been talking about this final for weeks. Like, I can't do this shit. I've been bawling my eyes out for like 20 minutes trying to find someone to help me. Well, Kenzie, you should have focused on your homework. Yeah, she's like upset because she hasn't been studying. Why is that everyone else's fault? She's like, I'm crying because I don't know how to do my math. She really thought Dom was going to do her final for her. Let me get a drink. I don't even know, Evie. I don't even know how she functioned. She says, I've been bawling my eyes out for like 20 minutes trying to find someone to help me. Dom says, I have no reference of what's going to be on the test. I'm not going in without studying or reviewing anything. He says, I wouldn't want to fail. She sends a picture and says, that's a video of the pretest. All you need to do is get over 65%. She says, like, I'm so effed. Dom says, that's not even geometry. What are you doing? She says, algebra 1. He says, no. Like, what are you doing? She says, what do you mean? He said, this is terrible. Kenzie says, Calissa said she would help. Jada also said she would help. Dom says, I don't think that's going to help much. Kenzie said, she's in trig. That's smart math. Kelsey's coming over. Dom says, if you want her help. She says, I don't know. She says, they're both coming. He says, really? They're both coming to your house? She says, Calissa's here right now. She's helping me. I did so bad. I hate my life. She hates her life, but it's do something about it. Like, we know how she spends all her time harassing Dom. She would rather not go to school or do anything other than be with Dom and harass him. Dom says, ask to retake it. She says, I did, but it's really bad. She says, I'm sad AF. Dom says, how bad did you do? She says, 40 something. F my life, F my life. F my life. Dom says, damn. He says, ask to redo, I'll help you. She says, are you sure you will help? I'm asking right now. Dom says, yeah, if you give me time. I'll help you study. She says, I need it done by next week. Dom says, okay. She says, you can do the test for me? No, Kenzie, he said study. Like, do your own test. She says, I'm ready at 2:08 p.m. She says, how long? How long? Babe? He says, on your street. She says, I'm hungry AF. Dom says, what you want? At 2:34 p.m. and then it jumps to 8:54. She says, she sends a little sideways emoji. And at midnight, she says, good night, babe. I low-key wish I didn't fall asleep so I could cuddle you. She says, in this style hurts. Dom says, I can't sleep now at 1:15 a.m. She says, oh God. Then it jumps to 8:00 a.m. She says, morning, babe. He says, good morning, babe. She says, hi, babe. He says, what are you doing at 10:37 a.m.? She says, I'm just chilling. Anxious AF about my test. Want to come over and hang until 3? I can come over if you bring me home around 2:30. Dom says, maybe. Wait, what time was that? Then she sends emojis. That was at 11:23 a.m. At 1:01 p.m. She says, "You better never say that shit to me again." The disrespect. Fucking gross. I'm trying to have your back. I don't know why you don't understand that. Oof. It only jumped to 2 hours. She says, "Did you just really block me?" Dom says, "You shouldn't hit me up on there." Kenzie says, "Like, you can't just say that to me." Dom says, "My freedom comes first." Kenzie says, "Especially in front of a friend." I understand that, but I told you to help you. Dom says, "It don't matter." Kenzie says, "Just never say that to me again or it won't be good." "I don't deserve it," she says at 1:10 p.m. And then it jumps to 1:40. He says, "Do you have bacon?" She says, "Maybe." She says, "We don't. You want my mom to get you some?" Dom says, "I'm starving and really want bacon." She says, "She can." Dom says, I can just go to Drug Mart. I just have no socks or shoes on." Kenzie says, "Oh, just wear slides with no socks." She says, "I email my teachers asking for help and they ignore me." Dom says, "Email them again. Don't go to class if they don't answer." Kenzie says, "Just did." Dom says, "And if they say you're not going to class, then say they ain't helping. Call the school." Kenzie says, "It's just annoying because I'm confused." She says, "But I'll figure it out." Dom says, "Do you have that sausage I bought?" Kenzie says, "Probably." She says, "We do." I have to sneeze. He says, "Want to make pancakes and sausage?" "You probably won't want sausage." She said, "Give me like 10 minutes, then sure." She says, "I gotta be back by 2:30." She says she has to be back by 2:30, but it's 1:54 p.m. What's the point? He says, "Okay." He says, "That's not a lot of time." Kenzie says, "You can come back with me." Tom says, "I have to shower." He says, "Come make the come make the pancake mix so I can make sausage." She says, "Okay, fine." I have to sneeze. And it keeps going away. He says, "Okay, fine. I'll come. Give me 5." She says, "On the way." She says, "Also, you gotta drive me back at 2:30." Dom says, "Okay." She says, "Babe," at 3:48 p.m. "I only have $20." Dom says, "I'll give her the rest." Kenzie says, "You can come over. Just be quiet." Dom says, "I can't. Sheen is here. You can come get it when y'all do." She says, "Okay." I got 60. Dom says, "Oh, for real?" Oh, and then he says at 4 p.m., "So you failed again? I guess you have to be a millionaire like me." Kenzie says, "I'm for real gonna cry." Dom says, "Billionaire." He says, "Everything happens for a reason." "I don't care when I couldn't pass." Kenzie says, "I care about Polaris so much. This shit is so sad." Dom says, "You can still get into Polaris next year." She says, "I did it. I got an 80. Dom says, "You can come." She says, "Okay, bet." Oh, she passed. Well, I don't think she passed because her friend, right? Um, she had someone take her test for her. That little shit. Everything is so dramatic for her. Yeah. Imagine not even being able to take a test. She cheated. Yeah, she cheated the whole time. She always cheated. And she has a sty. Yeah, she does. Those suck. Um, he says, "Come." She says, "Okay, bet." She says, "Please, on my way." He says, "Let me know when you're here." She says, "Here? Where you at?" He says, "Come outside." Then it jumps to the next morning at 9:07 a.m. Sorry, hold on. Okay, 9:07 a.m. He says morning because he says morning, babe. He says good morning, babe. She says, when are we going to the party today? So I know when to be ready. Whose party? She says, so I know when to be ready at 10:16 a.m. She says, babe, can you answer? He says, I was showering. He says, you have plenty of time. She said, FaceTime me. He says, what are you doing? Want to get picked up? She says, yes, babe. She says, come. He says, right now? She says, give me 5 minutes to pick shoes. Then yes. He says, okay. She says, you can come. I found shoes. She says, where you at? She says, who's at your house? Oh, wait, it jumps to the next day. Says at midday. Then it jumps to the 6th. She says, who's at your house at 4:22 p.m.? Red car. He says, Kyle. She says, what are you doing, babe? At 6:07 p.m. He says, I'm hanging with Kyle. She says, sounds fun. I just ate. Sorry, I had to sneeze. Mm, yeah, I think it was her eyelashes. She graduated. Did she? I thought she just passed. Did she even graduate from Polaris before she went to jail? That I don't know. I don't remember. She did. She says, Dom says, I'm hanging out with Kyle. She said, just sounds fun. I just ate. Dom says, what you eat? She said, Chinese. He says, nice. She says, I'm just chilling now, waiting for cake and shit. Dom says, for sure. She says, Kristen want to hang with me. Dom says, whatever you want to do. She says, I want to hang with you. She says, both. How long you chilling with Kyle? He says, I don't know. Dom says, we can hang later. She says, bet. Dom says, LOL. She says, the convo my family is having right now got me dead. Dom says, what are they saying? Kenzie says, I'll tell you when I'm with you. Dom says, okay. He says, I miss you at 7:52 p.m. Kenzie says, I miss you too. She says, what are you doing now? He says, smoking with everyone. She said, that sounds fun. I'm gonna go home and shower real fast and smoke with Kristen, then come back to babe. Dom says, okay, Kyle isn't here, but he's coming back. She said, when, babe? He said, I don't know. We're at my house. He's probably going to eat dinner here. Did Kristen tell you they were fighting? Kenzie says, yeah. She told me not to tell you. Apparently, they're on a break right now. She says, what's your mom making? Dom says, kebabs. She says, oh. Kenzie says, Dom says, LOL. He says, you can probably come eat too. I'm sure she won't care. Dom says, yeah, he told me not to tell you. Dom says, but I want to care for my boy. Kenzie says, yeah, be there for him. He needs it. I feel really bad for both of them. Dom says, right? She says, I'm with her right now. Dom says, for sure. She says, what's going on at 9:49 p.m.? He says, we're all watching the Lakers. She says, how's that going? He says, Lakers are up. I'm happy about it. She says, Bella's here, LMFAO. She says, so you just want to hang tomorrow or is Kyle dipping soon? Dom says, we're still watching the Lakers, so I don't know, babe. Up to you. I'm gonna go climbing again tomorrow. She says, I still would chill, but when I gonna be home tomorrow, babe? Dom says, I'm meeting them to climb at 11. She says, okay, wanna hang after? She says, maybe tonight. She says, I wanna hang. Dom says, we just got done watching basketball. You wanna come in 30? She says, yes, at 11:24 p.m. She says, can I come sooner? It's literally so late. He says, maybe. She says, please, babe. Dom says, maybe. Kenzie says, well, it's late, about to be 12. Can I just come around 11:40? Dom says, I don't know. I have to sleep soon. She says, we can hang tomorrow if you want, babe. It's really up to you. He says, okay, tomorrow's better. Sorry, babe. She says, I will come over if you want because I'm always down to see you. She says, FaceTime before bed. He says, sleep over soon, though. I have new bed. She says, we can hang after you with Kyle. She says, I will, babe. Answer about FaceTime. He says, about what? She says, wanna later? She's, he says, FaceTime? She says, yes. He says, we're still chilling. I might just go to bed. She says, Kyle? So no FaceTime? He says, yeah, me, Kyle, Angelo, and I don't know what he meant by that. She says, oh, that's fun. She says, you didn't say goodnight, sad face. He says, I'm sorry, babe. I didn't know. She says, it's cool. She says, what's up now? At 10:50 or at 10:11 a.m. on the 7th. He said, taking a shit. Gonna be at the gym by 11. She says, I just woke up. Dom says, me and Luis ate a little late. I'm at Luis's. She says, when will you be home? He says, I don't know, for real. Probably earliest 1. It's 10:58. And she says, damn, can we chill later? He says, probably, yeah. I think she's sending a link to, it looks like a purse. Maybe I can't see it. It's too small. I can't click on it either. Looks like a link to something. She says, LOL, did you leave me on red? He says, no, it was my car. She says, oh, is it pouring? My lake is so effing flooded. He says, I know, it's supposed to flood. He said, highway was shady. She says, look at my story, please. She says, I can't. Oh, wait. She says, look at my story at 11:55 a.m. She says, please FaceTime. She says, I can't find my fake eyelashes. Dom says, I'm rock climbing right now. And your Snap story? I seen IG. I seen it. She says, he says, babe. She says, what's up, babe? He says, I know you didn't text back. I answered you a couple times. She says, oh, my bad. I didn't even mean to do that, but my whole backyard could be flooded today. She says, are you coming home soon? He says, yeah, we'll be wrapping this up soon. He says, I did better today. She says, you want to scoop when you're on the way home? She says, oh, do you have videos? He says, no, I'll get some next time. I'm sore. He says, I'll bring you one of these times. Maybe just me and you could go. She says, that would be so fun. He says, bet. She says, I feel like I'd be good, but can you pick me up when you're on the way home? He says, yeah, probably. She says, okay, bet. She says, I'm going to smoke with Bella and Kristen real quick. Dom says, okay. He says, on the way home at 1:05 p.m. She says, how long to your home? I'm going to just get a ride over because they want to smoke. But as soon as you're home, I'm coming over. She says, how far? He says, I'm about home. She says, okay, I'm going to come over right now when they leave, okay? He says, okay, let me see what Kyle's doing first. She says, no, I can come over right now. He doesn't respond. She says, Dom. He says, why? She says, I want to hang with you. Don't hang with him, babe. He says, why? She says, you really gonna say why? Like, for real? So do you not want to hang anymore? Dom sends 7 question marks. She says, I'm confused, and sends 12 question marks. He says, okay. She says, Dom, are we not hanging anymore? I'm so confused right now. He says, I guess not. She says, what do you mean not? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. I want to hang. He says, okay. Puts 7 question marks. Because he says, you just said we could. WTF is going on? Question mark, question mark, question mark. He says, you're annoying me is what's happening. She says, how? Like, you said why to me saying I want to hang. Dom says, you're not patient at all. She says, I didn't know I needed to wait. You were supposed to pick me up. Dom says, you don't need to wait. You just need to be patient. Well, yeah, you do need to wait, but patiently, LOL. She says, I'm trying to call you, so what I say doesn't make you mad or something. She says, I'm confused AF. He says, nah, just talk later. She says, so we're not hanging soon anymore? Sad face. Like, I was ready to hang. Dom says, doesn't mean that I was. Oof. Why would you even want to hang with somebody when they're like saying that? We know why Dom doesn't want to hang with her, and I support it, but I would feel like, hey, Nemo's fine. If someone doesn't want me around or doesn't want to talk to me or acts like that, you know what I mean? I'm not going to continue to press on it. He says, doesn't mean that I was. She says, Dom, you were going to pick me up. Like, WTF? Like, why you gotta make me feel like I did something wrong? He doesn't respond. She emphasizes her message. She says, this shit is stressing me out so bad. Like, why are you being mean to me now? Dom says, the fuck? Question mark. F off. He tells her to fuck off. Oh boy. She says, LMAO, okay. Let me know when you make up your mind. I thought you wanted to hang with me. Dom says, I said probably. I don't like getting pressured. She says, I didn't even try to pressure you. Like, I thought we were just going to hang because you said, yeah, probably. They leaving right now. He doesn't respond. She says, they left. Just sneeze. He says, okay, we can probably hang later. She says, okay, please don't ignore me. She says, can we hang around 4 or 4:30? Dom says, I don't know. I'm driving my mom to Scotty's. Then I'm getting a bottle and blunts for Thomas before he goes back to college. Kenzie said, okay, that's fine. I'd be down to come with if you want. But I don't really care if you want to go alone. Dom says, I'm already on the way. She says, okay, babe. She says at 2:27 p.m. Guess what I'm having my mom get me? Prosciutto. I think that's how you spell it. But she spelt it wrong. Right? I think she did. He says, how about, Kenzie says, how about after you go do all of that, you scoop me? Dom says, no, we can probably chill later. She says, babe, at 2:55 p.m., can you please text me nice? Dom says, yeah, just don't complain. Kenzie said, I never was, sideways face. But yeah, what are you doing now? Dom says, nothing, about to get food, waiting for Thomas and Kyle. Kenzie says, what food? And you think you will be there a long time? Dom says, where? She says, aren't you chilling with Thomas for a little bit? Dom says, probably not long. He'll probably come through. He has to leave back to college at 6. Kenzie says, why is he back today? Dom said his mom's birthday and it's Labor Day weekend. She says, okay, well, can we hang when Thomas leaves? She says, I miss you. He says, I miss you too, babe. He says, love you. He says, I'm a link with Kyle for a little at 3:22 p.m. Then we will have the rest of the day together. She says, love you too, babe. She says, okay, bet. I'm excited. That was at 3:22. And then at 4:16, she says, you think we can hang soon? He doesn't respond. She says, Dom? He says, I'm still with Kyle. She says, how long? You were with him for a long ass time yesterday. Dom dislikes her message saying how long. Dislikes her other message saying long ass time. Kenzie says, question mark? That's not being nice, Dom. Puts a bunch of sideways emojis. Can you at least answer the call? She says at 4:55 p.m. Removes an exclamation mark, questions her own message. Can you just call me? Dom says, you're not being nice. She says, how? Dom dislikes her message. She says, you can't even give me a time. Dom says, I'm just chilling and you're spamming me, giving me shit. Kenzie says, I've been begging to hang. All you want to do is hang with Kyle. Dom says, okay, well, I'm going to do that the rest of the day. She says, no, are you serious? Why do you have to do this shit to me? It's like, you don't even try. I've been waiting. Dom says, well, since all I want to do is hang with Kyle, that's what I'm going to do. Kenzie says, for like 5 hours? Question mark, question mark. You really are making me cry. Dom says, I wasn't even home from the gym 5 hours ago. Kenzie says, are you really going to do that to me? Dom says, well, stop complaining and I won't be acting like this. Kenzie says, you can't even text me back nice or call me. How do you expect me to just sit here and be calm? I've been waiting since like 2 for you and you don't even care. I let you do all your shit. No response. She says, like, stop making me feel like I did something wrong when all I've been doing is waiting here. No response. I should have never let Kristen over. No response. She says, then you wouldn't have left me. Dom says, well, you are doing something wrong. She says, are you kidding me? Dom says, so stop giving me shit. Kenzie says, wow. I really can't believe you right now. You're making me feel so fucking shitty. Dom says, you're making me very aggravated. If I can't chill or don't want to chill, then I can't chill or don't want to chill. No questions asked. Kenzie said, excuse me? Dom says, if I say later, then I don't know how long, so you don't have to ask. Kenzie says, you're treating me like shit right now. This is embarrassing. No one treats their girl like this. Like, at this point, I feel like you just keep Kyle at your house. It makes me so sad. You don't care at all that I've just been waiting for you. Like, this shit hurts. Dom says, you make no fucking sense. Kenzie says, that shouldn't make you mad. Dom says, I'm muting you. She says, OMG. Dom says, why the F you gotta make me so effing mad? Like, are you for real? She says, I'm not. You're just being rude. Dom says, this is really what you spend your time on. Kenzie says, I'm gonna stand up for myself. Dom says, this is how you use your time, huh? She says, well, when I don't know what time because you won't tell me when, then I have to wait. Like, you are so damn rude. Dom says, question mark, question mark, question mark? I don't know what you're saying, he says. Chris and Thomas are coming over now. So we'll probably just chill tomorrow. She says, F you. What the F is wrong with you? With 20 exclamation marks. Sends a screenshot of his own message. She says, thanks a lot, Dom. Thanks for only caring about your shitty friends. Fucking fake ass shit. I for real can't believe you just did this. You can never keep your word with me about hanging. Like, does making me cry make you happy or some shit? If you ditch me, we're going to have issues, she says at 5:17 p.m. He says, because you like to bother the F out of me. Stop wasting your time on this. Kenzie says, you like to make me wait, then ditch me? Dom says, go do something. Kenzie says, it's happened over 100 times. What the F do you want me to do? She says, are you dumb? Me and Maddie are not friends. It's like you don't even listen. Like, OMFG. You don't care at all. Dom says, no, you like to make me say yes to chilling way earlier than I want to. And when I'm not ready, you annoy me. So I get mad and then we don't chill. She says, make you? A bunch of question marks and exclamation marks. Wow. Fuck you. He says, you bug me. She says, you're fake AF. So are your friends. She says, if you ditch me, I don't know what I'm going to do. He dislikes her message. She says, you probably won't care because you just let me be upset and be mean to me. And you make me feel like I did horrible things when I just got upset and it's not fair. She sends a screenshot of his own message. Quote unquote, for a little, then we'll have the rest of the day. End quote. Dom says, this is terrible. Yes, Dom, it is terrible. She's so nasty. Dude. It is terrible. She says, so do your words mean nothing? Dom says, I never asked to deal with this. Kenzie says, I never asked for you to ditch me and treat me like nothing all day. You told me Thomas has to leave at 6. Dom says, you're going to make me really, really effing mad, okay? So stop texting me. This is done right now. Kenzie says, then apologize to me. Dom says, before I throw the whole thing away. He says, no. She says, oh, OMFG with a bunch of G's. Dom says, you pushed me past my limits. I'm not going to deal with this, okay? She says, wow. Dom says, I'm not going to deal with this, okay? Because that's not what I'm going to do at all, okay? She says, I can't even think of what to say. I can't believe you just said that. I'm fucking in shock right now. Dom says, okay, cool. So we're good now? We're going to forget and then talk later? Kenzie says, I will never forget what you just said to me. I can't believe you said that shit to me. I can't believe you think it's okay to talk to me like that. Dom says, okay, cool. So we're good now? And you done texting? ? She says, is it bad that I don't believe you're going to hit me up to hang later? Dom says, we don't have to hang. She says, and if it's later past 7, I'm going to be mad. I've been waiting to hang for 2 days. Dom sends an emoji. She says, last night and this morning. Wait, last night and this morning is not 2 days. I swear I can't deal with Kenzie. Last night and this morning. It's still within the same 24 hours though. She says, can you try a little? Like even a tiny bit? Dom says, look, this conversation is done. Done. She says, disrespectful AF. He says, no more text. Cool. Talk to you later. She says, Dom, OMG. If you ditch me, Dom says, and I decide when later is. She says, we're going to have issues. And you do not talk to me like this. Ever. Dom says, oh, F it, I guess. She says, no. Dom said, this is done. Kenzie says, no. She says, what the F is wrong with you? OMG. Like, just stop. Dom says, well, I can't spend time with my friends because I have to text war you like Tom has been waiting here. She says, Dom. Dom says, F out of here before I say F it. I have enough stress. Kenzie says, all I asked was how long? Dom says, you're not allowed to contribute. You're not allowed to. No. Never. Get the F out of here. He emphasizes his own message. Understood? So look, we're done talking. I decide when we can talk later. Kenzie says, like I said, you don't ever talk to me like that because it's disgusting and I'm done texting you because you're making me want to just cry myself to sleep at 5:29 p.m. She says, and I know you don't even care. Dom says, I'm going to help Thomas real quick so he can go back to college. Okay, cool, bye. Talk to you later. She says, wow. The fact that you can sit here and disrespect me like that is shocking. I never thought this would happen again. This shit is depressing. Like, I dressed all cute for you too, but I guess I'll just change. Yeah, Kenzie, just change. No one gives a shit about your outfit. She says, LOL, and you still leave me on red. Dom says, I said we can talk later. Kenzie says, it's almost been 2 hours. That is later. Then it jumps to midnight. She says, didn't you say at 6? When is Thomas going to college? Oh, wait, no, it's not midnight. Just kidding. It's 7:12 p.m. She says, and didn't you say 6? When is Thomas going to college? He says, I say when. Kenzie says, it's honestly funny as shit when you talk like that. It's funny how you're still talking like that. Like, it's been hours and you're still choosing Kyle over me, she says at 7:15 p.m. It's past 7. It's getting late. 7:17, she says, still no answers. Still not answering calls. Dom says, I'm chilling with Chris, Kyle, and Blair. She says, N-word. Honestly, I'm done with this shit. See, like you give no fucks about me. Dom says, you're tripping. She says, Dom, read our convo. You were mean since like 1. Dom says, okay, let me read it. Kenzie says, Kyle has been at your house 2 days in a row, and you bailed on me twice for him. Dom says, I haven't seen Kyle in so long. Kenzie says, Dom, you see him all the time. Like, that doesn't mean ruin plans with your girl and treat her like shit all day. Like, I would just come hang right now and hang with everyone just fine. Dom says, bruh, we could be chilling if you just stop tripping. She says, you choosing to disclude me. Dom, I'm not even tripping right now. I'm just saying facts. And I didn't text you for 2 hours, so I don't know what you mean by that. You're the one still mad and leaving me on red. Like, this is one of those days I'll never forget. She says, I have school tomorrow. So you can fix your issue so easy. And I know how, and I know you know how to, but you're choosing to upset me. He doesn't respond. She says, you can answer the phone? ? Dom says, no, I can't. She says, why can't you? He says, because I'm trying to chill with them and actually have a convo before they leave and not argue with you. She says, what are you even talking about? You had all day. Dom says, what do you mean? We chill for so long. Kenzie says, it's like you're trying to make me upset. Dom says, I've been chilling with Kyle 3 hours. Chris like 2. And Blair just got here. Kenzie said, that's your fault for inviting them over when we had plans. Dom says, I'm not trying to make you upset. She says, I do not believe that, but I don't want to chill with them and they have time today. Wait, Dom says, but I don't chill with them and they have time today. Kenzie says, I can just come over and chill with everyone and with you. Dom emphasized his message. She says, like, you're just making this so hard. Dom questions her message, says, no, not the same. She says, I've been on the bridge of a panic attack all day. How is that not the same? Dom says, you're making it hard for me to do anything today. Kenzie says, or you can be nice and tell them to leave because we had plans. Like, you can fix this right now. Dom says, well, it's not the same because without you here, you're not here. What? Well, it's not the same because without you here, you're not here. Kenzie said, or everyone just leave at 8. Dom says, and with you here, you're here. So it's different. Kenzie says, it's really not. Y'all act the same with and without me. Dom says, we didn't really have plans. I said we can chill later. Kenzie says, OMG. Dom says, now we're wasting time again, and I'm going to get really mad. Kenzie said, say what you're trying to say. Say what you're trying to say is you're not going to let me come over tonight. He doesn't respond. She says, Dom, we're not even arguing. Calm the F down. Dom says, if you keep making me mad, we're not going to chill. Kenzie says, Dom, I have school tomorrow. He says, okay. She says, I have to leave at 12:30 if I come over. Dom says, okay. She says, like, you can be nice, have everyone leave around 8 and we can hang. Or you can just F me over and not let me come. Like, this is what makes me not F with your friends. I'm about to not be cool with Kyle. Dom says, you're tripping. Now I'm mad. Pipe the F down. Kenzie says, whatever, Dom. Thanks for ruining my whole day and lying to me. She says, that just proved all you care about is your friends. Thanks for hurting me. Dude, he doesn't want to hang with you and your, like, with his friends and you because they see how you are. Like, what does she not understand? I wasn't allowed to be out that late. Me either. Her curfew went from 12:30 to like 2 a.m. No way. She says, thanks for hurting me. He says, I chill with you every day. He says, thanks for making me rage all day and not even letting me have fun with my friends for once. When have all of us been here together? It's been so long, he says. But thanks, babe. I take you everywhere, get you almost whatever you want, but you can't let me chill with my friends for one day. But I'll still do all of that, I guess. Kenzie says, I let you chill with your friends all the time. I only get mad when you lie or ditch me, and you did both today. Yeah, Dom was always better to her than she was to him. She says, stop acting like I don't appreciate you. Dom disliked her message. Kenzie says, no to what? I've been nice to you, all nice, even when you're talking to me like I'm a fucking dog. And that's also never going to happen again, by the way. And remember why me and Maddie aren't cool anymore? And that I pretty much and that and that I pretty much and no have no friends. Like I told you, I don't have any friends right now. And I remember you telling me not to worry, but I should have known it was gonna be like this. And you don't care. You will never understand that struggle. I just lost my effing best friend, and you can't even answer me. He says, I'm busy. I was busy doing something. She says, okay, well, answer now. You could have just replied. You answered, but I don't know why you said that. Read what I said. Dom says, this isn't my problem right now. She says, it is. You're the reason this shit started because you needed to see what Kyle was doing when we had plans. Then she says, call me. Then she says, so what is going on tonight? He says, we probably won't chill. Maybe at like 9:30 we can chill. She says, of course, at 7:54 p.m. Of course, that's what you say. You know just how to make everything so much worse. If you ditch me tonight, we're going to have issues. Dom says, how? She says, I know you didn't just say how. Like, why can't you compromise with me? I'm for real about to flip out. You should see my fucking face right now. He says, okay, we can chill at 9:30. She says, you can't compromise? Like, I'm going to be half asleep. Like, you really can't hang out at 8:45? That's right in the middle. She emphasized her message, then questions. He doesn't respond. She says, oh my God, answer so I can leave you alone. If not, he says 9. She says 8:50. Wait, yeah, she says 8:50. She says, please. No response. She says, question mark? Dom says 9, babe. She says, you really can't go 10 minutes shorter? Dom says, maybe. Hit me up at 8:50. So she hits him up at 8:50, 30 minutes later. What's up? You think I can come now? Dom said, what's going to happen when you come? She said, nothing. Dom says, are we going to be normal and just chill, right? She says, yeah. She says, can I just come? Dom says, leave in 5 minutes. She says, at 58? I'm going to leave at 8:58. The fact that he even has to worry, like, he's like, are you going to be normal? Guess she can't take a hint. He don't want her, but he don't seem to have the nerve to tell her to go. I know. Hey, Amber. Replay gang. What up? Thanks for being here. Yeah, Natalie, what the F is up with that? I know you're here, Nat. Yeah, Natalie. Come out of the bushes, Natalie. Come give the live a like, Natalie. Okay, sounds good, Ruth. Good to see you. She says, morning, my babe, on September 9th at 8:00 a.m. She says, FaceTime me when you're up. He says, sorry, I don't know how I slept this late at 11:06 a.m. She said, it's okay, babe. You were up late. He says, LOL. She says, I'm on lunch right now. He said, nice. She says, I'm bored for real. She says, my last class was so boring. He says, I need to take a shit. She says, FaceTime? He says, I'm gonna go shit first. She says, okay, yay. And then he sends a picture and another picture. I think these are pictures of Kenzie. Yeah. He says, my beautiful babe. She says, babe. She says, "You're so sweet. I love you." She says, "I think I'm gonna buy the battle pass thing for Brawl Star." He says, "I tried to, but I don't know my Apple ID password." She says, "I'm gonna get in right now." He says, "Nice." She said, "Got it." He said, "Bring," oh, 11:29 a.m. Then he says, "Bring pre-rolls stuff." She says, "I will when I'm free." Dom says, "Okay." She says, "Are y'all still talking?" Dom says, "Yeah." She says, "Let me know when I can come." Dom says, "Okay." She says, "I can go to Polaris tomorrow." Dom said, "That's dope AF. I told you that you still could." She says, "I'm really happy." Dom says, "Do you go to class or is it online?" She says, "I hope I like it. I go tomorrow. I go in." He said, "For sure." She said, "I'm anxious." He says, "It'll be fine." She says, "Do you think we can hang before 4? I'm just anxious. I'm not gonna like this after all of this." Dom says, "Like what?" And yeah, we can. I'm about to run to Tommy's real quick, then we can hang. She says, "Like, what if I don't like my class?" I just sneeze. Beautifully. He's always on the toilet. Um, that's funny. Hey, ATS, good to see you, girl. She says, "Like, what if I don't like my class? And do you want to scoop?" He says, "I could." She says, "Bet." She says, "How long?" She says, "Did you go to Tommy's yet?" He says, "About to be at your house." She says, "Yay." He says, "Here at 3:27." She says, Oh, so then it jumps from 3:27 to 10:32. She says, "Where even are you? Should I just dip? It's hot AF in my house." He says, "Open a window." She says, "It's cooler outside. Also, good luck at Polaris tomorrow," he says. "Good night, babe. I love you." She says, "I love you so much, babe. Good night, babe." Then at 3:31 a.m., she says, "Just puked." Dom says, "Why, babe?" She says, "I don't feel good at all. Like I was in hella stomach pain. I think it's from the sub." Then at 8:24, she says, "Oh my God, my teacher's so effing R word. Like she's making me think about dropping the class already. I'm so annoyed right now. I have like no tops that I like." Dom says, "Just wear something simple." Kenzie said, "Today has been such a bad day." Dom says, "That's what life is about. Keep pushing." Kenzie says, "Like I'm all itchy and hot. I can't find an outfit. And my Polaris teacher just ruined my whole morning." Dom says, "How?" Kenzie said, "So I wake up at 7, like I'm supposed to. And this dumbass won't email me back after I sent her 3 emails. But she's like posting on Google Classroom and she knows nothing what she's doing. And she keeps posting, creating a Google Meet, not even the actual meet. Like the class never even happened because of how slow that teacher is. And you know how much that all cost? My shit is $400. Dom says, "Just call her. You can call through email or call the school and complain." Kenzie says, "I was so mad. I even commented on the assignment and she didn't answer. So I don't know what the F is wrong with this teacher. Like, they should be answering my email right away." Um, no, Kenzie, you're not like the only student in the world. Like, you're not the only one. She says, "They should be answering my email right away." She still hasn't even answered me, she says at 11:41 a.m. "I'm about to go to the mall and get a backpack for school," she says. Dom says, "Nice." He says, "I'm about to get up soon and I need to shower today." Kenzie says, "I'm a shower today too." She says, "Today has been so frustrating. Ugh. Like my mom now won't take me to the mall because my sister's on call. I'm gonna just try to relax and shop." Dom says, "Just go take some breaths and you'll realize it's not a big deal at all." Kenzie says, "I'll try." She says, "What's your move today, babe?" At 11:45. "Would you be able to drive me to the mall?" "Please," she emphasizes. Dom says, "I'm still in bed." She says, "Oh, okay, that's fine." He says, "I just got up. I probably could in a little." She says, "My mom can take me now, I think." Dom says, "Okay, bet." Then she says, "Answer. I need to let you know something. I'm trying on shoes right now." He doesn't respond. She says, "What are you doing?" She questions her own message. He doesn't respond. She says, "I need to know what shoes you're talking about." Sideways emoji. Emphasizes her message. Dom says, "I was in the shower." She said, "Oh, that makes sense. What shoes were you talking about?" He doesn't respond. She says, "Call me." He says, "Get pulp on the way home and let me get some." She says, "I got it. I have to go home change, then you can scoop." Dom says, "How long?" He said, "It's gonna melt." Kenzie says, "It's not." She says, "I gotta change my pants. On the way." She says, "I'm not gonna change my pants anymore." And then it jumps to the next morning at 7:07 a.m. on September 9th or September 10th, 2020. She says, "Morning, babe. Audrey's on my bus." Dom says, "Really? What you gonna do? Is she in cause? Also, good luck today, baby. I miss you." He says, "I love you." She says, "OMG. I'm so fucking mad. I love you, babe." She says, "I'm about to be." Wait, what time was she at school? 9:53. Then she says, "I love you, babe." She says, "I'm about to be home." At 10:58. She says, "What you doing today?" He says, "Right now I'm running somewhere. Then I'm gonna be on the way home. I'll FaceTime you in a sec." She says, "Okay, bet." Sends a screenshot of a message. He says, "Yeah, I'd keep being more of a PUSSY." Kenzie says, "I will." She says, "FaceTime me, babe." Dom says, "What are you doing now?" She says, "School," at 11:30 a.m. Dom says, "Babe." Kenzie said, "Yes, babe." He says, "I need a cheesecloth. I forgot." Kenzie said, "I'll get you some." Dom says, "When you get off school, because it's going to be done in an hour." She said, "Exactly. I know exactly where they are." She says, "Shit, okay." He says, "Okay." She says, "Give me a time." He sends an emoji. He says, 1:11, they will be done. She sends an emoji back. She says, "Okay, bet." He says, "In 1 hour exactly." She says, "LMAO, okay, babe." He says, "I need lots of cheesecloths, more marshmallows." More marshmallows, more cereal. Can you do that? She says, "You can give me an amount of each thing." Yeah, give me an amount of each thing. Dom, please. She says, "On call with teacher." Dom said, "4 bags of mini marshmallows, 4 boxes of Fruity Pebbles, like 5 things of cheesecloth. Kyle bring me something. I told him he can bring Kristen if he wants and we can smoke." Kenzie says, "Yay, I'm still on class right now. I'll try to get there ASAP." Dom says at 1 o'clock, "I don't think they're coming." Kenzie says, "Okay, I'm taking a test right now. I'll text you in 6." She says, "Lexi giving me all the math answers." She says, "I'm about to leave." She says, "Going to the store right now." He says, "Bet." He says, "Get Fruity Pebbles and get some marshmallow fluff too." She says, "How many?" He says, "A couple." He says, "When you going to be at my house?" She says, "I'm waiting for my mom. Then I'm going to walk over. I have to watch the kids while she's getting it." Dom said, "Oh, for real?" He says, "I can probably just pick you up. I just got home." Kenzie says, "My mom can drive me." He says, "Actually, Blair and Kyle Harper are coming through." She says, "I'm coming," at 1:57 p.m. He says, "You're coming now?" She said, "Yes." He says, "Oh, okay, bet." He says, "You got everything?" She says, "Yes." He says, "Bet." She says, "Do you not want me to come?" And then she says, then it jumps to from 4:05 to 5:02 p.m. Pulled or smoke? Chicken. Answer. It will be ready in 5. Kenzie says, "Bet." She says, coming soon. And she says, wait, what time is it? Yeah, she says, coming soon at 9:06, 8:46. Then she says at 9:06, babe, question mark, question mark, question mark. What are you doing? He says, that was at 11:46. Then it jumps to the next morning at 8:59 a.m. He says, good luck at school, baby. I love you. She says, just leaving Polaris now. Love you so much, babe. He says, love you too. She says at 10:40, what are you doing, babe? He says, at home, getting things done, about to eat. She says, I feel so crappy today. He says, you looked really good on Snapchat. She says, I look good for you, babe. No, we don't think you look good. We don't. Marshmallows. Sounds like they're making edibles. That's what it sounds like they're doing. They're making edibles. At least that's my opinion. Ooh. Let me get a drink. She says, I look good for you, babe. She says, you have to answer. FaceTiming for like 1 minute. He says, I was talking to Sean. She says, what's the move? He says, want to chill for a little and get food? Going to Kyle's at 6 or 7. She says, well, of course I don't have a fucking ride. I'm for real gonna have to walk. I'm so mad right now. He says, I can just pick you up. She says, Dom says, I'm eating right now. Give me a sec. She said, okay, scoop me in a second. I'm ready. She said, like, my family just knows how to ruin my mood. He says, why? He says, bra. She says, okay. She says, are we not hanging out? She says, want to just come to my house? He says, I'm playing Madden. She questioned her, are we not hanging out? She said, the annoying ass school is loud AF. He says, what school? She says, so are we not hanging out at 10:32 p.m.? Kind of just jumped from one thing to another. He says, probably not. I'm sorry, babe. He says, but we do have Jared's tomorrow and sleepover. She says, okay. She says, I love you, babe. Have fun at 10:35 p.m. He says, love you too, baby. He says, oh, you don't have school tomorrow? He says, if you're up in a little, we can hang. She says, I'm going to bed now, probably. She said, how soon? He says, oh, I don't know. I'll probably be here at least another half hour long. She says, yeah, I'll definitely be sleeping by then. I'm so exhausted, but if I'm up, you can FaceTime me probably. He says, okay, babe. Next morning at 9:42 a.m. She says, morning. FaceTime me when you're up. And then she says, hi, babe, at 3:01 p.m. He says, hi, babe. She says, when you want to hang? Want to come over? Then we can go to your house after I shower. Dom says, I don't know if I have time to chill at your house. Try to shower right at 5 so we can go to Jared's. She says, what time does that start? He says, I don't know. She says, I'm a shower around 5:35 because that's when my timer ends. She said, FaceTime me real quick. She says, I'm about to get in at 5:32 p.m. Then she says, what's going on now? He doesn't respond. She says, babe, at 6:08 p.m. Should I take my hair down or leave it in a braid? Dom says, braid. She says, I'm putting on my lashes now. Dom says, I'll get you in 20 minutes or so. She said, that's perfect. Dom says, bet. She says, you coming soon at 7:25 p.m. He says, on the way. She says, yay. Dom says, about to be there. And that was at 7:26 p.m. And then by 11:06 p.m., sounds like they're fighting. She says, I don't really know your issue. Weird AF. She says, why did you just throw my phone at midnight? 12:30 at midnight. 12:30 at midnight? 12:30 at night. She says, what is happening? I'm scared. Okay. Then she says, the next well, later that day at 3:16. So that happened at 12:38 in the middle of the night. And then she says at 3:16 PM, my mom's already pissing me off. Like, fuck this house. She says, can you answer for just 2 seconds? She emphasizes her message. Dom said, sorry, I was helping Kyle before he left. Kenzie said, all my nails are breaking. Dom says, get him redone. Kenzie says, what are you doing? He says, booning with 𝗠𝗲𝗄. She said, that sounds fun. She says, I'm about to eat cake. Still want to hang when I dip? He says, yeah, I want to go watch football with Kyle and Bradbury, though. She says, wait, he says, yeah, I want to go watch. She says, can I come? He says, probably. She says, yay. She says, I'm on the way home right now at 6:40 PM. She says, are you still with 𝗠𝗲𝗄? He says, no, I'm just at home. She says, can I get dropped off at your house? She says, I'm by the Metro Parks. She says, I'm home now at 7:39 PM. He says, okay, at BS real quick. I'll be home soon. She says, bet. Do you want to just pick me up when you're on the way home? He says, here at 8:09 PM. Then it jumps to the next day, 9:14 at 10:39 AM. She says, morning, babe. Just left Polaris. He says, what are you doing? She says, I'm getting some orange juice right now. She says, I posted on Insta, babe. He says, okay, babe. She says, FaceTime at 11:06 AM. He says, not right now. Then she says, babe, you're really the best. Dom says, I try. She says, how'd you sleep? He says, I don't know. I'm mad now, though. I'm going back to sleep. She said, okay, I'll talk to you later. Then she says, I'm going to go to the hospital or doctor. My back is so effed, I can't stand up for more than 5 minutes. I'm just laying down right now and it's in serious pain. He said, that's weird. What kind of pain? She said, it's the worst pain ever. Like, remember how the last couple days I've been saying my back hurts? He questions her message. She says, like, it used to be when I was standing, but now it just stings when I'm sitting. It's sharp AF in my upper back. Dom says, oh, sharp pain? He says, yeah, probably something with the muscle. Maybe I was going to say if it was like burning pain, it could be your nerves. Kenzie said, it's that too. It's burning right now. She says, I just seen you. He says, where did you see me? She says, pick me up when you're on the way home. She says, babe. Wait, she says, pick me up on the way home at 5:49 PM. Then she says, babe, at 6:46 PM. He says, I'm just going to chill with 𝗠𝗲𝗄 when I'm back. She says, I thought you told me we can hang when you're back, when I FaceTime you. Dom says, well, I forgot I was supposed to link with 𝗠𝗲𝗄 today for edibles anyway, and he wants to smoke a blunt. Kenzie says, can I smoke with y'all? We can just hang after. I just have school again tomorrow, so I have to dip early. Dom says, okay, he didn't answer. He says, you want to get food at 7:08 PM? She said, yes, we can get wafu. He says, here. She says, okay, I'm coming. She says, that was at 7:30 PM. Then she says, my mom wants me home soon. Dom says, okay. She says, where are you at? Dom says, we're talking about what to do with Nikki. She says, what happened? Dom said, she's terrible. Kenzie says, come back in a second, tell me. Then she says, thanks for the disrespect. Wait, she says, come back and tell me. Come back in a second, tell me at 10:33 PM. Then she said, thanks for the disrespect. I'm really upset, to be honest. Like, I just want to cry. He doesn't respond. She says, so you're not going to answer? He says, I muted you earlier when I was mad. My bad. At midnight. Huh. So there's a fight that we didn't see happen in between the phone calls. Her parents probably went bankrupt. That's funny. All 5 of her nails. Why did he need so many cheesecloths? I don't know why I just thought of that. He says, "I muted you earlier when I was mad, my bad." He says at 12:30 at night. Then it jumps to the 15th at 10:46 AM. She says, "Hang at 1:40?" He says, "Maybe, let me see what I wanna do." She says, "I wanna get my nails done. Also, would you wanna come with?" He says, "I wanna stack up a little so we can go shopping tomorrow." She says, "Well, how about I get my nails done, then you gotta do what you gotta do, then we can hang after." He says, "Let me see what I wanna do." She says, "Okay, babe." Then Dom says, "LOL, babe." She says, "I don't know what I should do with my nails." Dom said, "Red French tips." Kenzie said, "F it. Imma probably do that. Or I'll do this." And then she sends a picture, which I can't see, but they look green. Dom says, "Nah, red." She says, "Okay." She says, "I just gotta sign this English project and it's so hard. And my appointment's at 2." Dom says, "What do you have to do?" She said, "It's complicated AF. I can't even explain it. I have to compare something happening in the world to the witch trials. Some bullshit." Dom says, "Oh, that probably won't be hard." No, Kenzie, that's like your basic history or English class. I don't know. What did she say? English? Oh my God. Is that what she said? It's a project, an English project. She said, "It's complicated AF. I can't even explain it." He says, "Oh, that probably won't be that hard." He says, "If you actually try, I'll help you get good grades, but you have to actually try." He says, "I just got a call from New York and it was a spoofer. I called the number back and the dude had the heaviest New York accent. It was funny as shit," says Dom. She said, "I'm down to try. That's funny AF. Did you F with him?" Dom says, "No, I was just like, my bad, bro. Someone spoofing your number." Kenzie says, "Oh, LOL." She says, "Look at Snap." He said, "What is it?" She said, "You seen it? The Griffin shit?" Dom says, "Oh." Kenzie says, "What you doing now at 4:04 PM? Wanna chill? Still want food?" Kenzie says, "My mom ordering now." Dom says, "What place?" Kenzie says, "Wild Fusion. Let me know ASAP." Dom says, "Sure, let me get pop stickers and general SOS meal. Pork fried rice. I'll pay you for it." She says, "Okay, am I coming over now? Or do you just want me to drop it off? LOL." Dom says, "Did you order it yet?" He says, "Wait, don't order it." He says, "I'll make something here." She says, "Okay, I won't." She says, "What are you doing at 7:08 PM?" He says, "Driving, then going to Trevor's and back to my house for b-ball." She said, "Sounds fun." She says, "I miss you, babe." He says, it might just be the sun." She says, "You know why it looks all crazy? Because of the fires. The sun is gone now." Dom says, "I figured. It'll probably be like that tomorrow." She says, "I have a small video." She says, "I hope so." I just sneeze. She says, "Night" at 10:50 PM. He says, "Good night, babe." He says, "What time are we going tomorrow?" At midnight. She says, "Let me see when my school is over." She says, "It's over around 1:30 to 1:40." Kenzie says at 7:50 AM. She says, "But I can probably just skip if you want." Dom says, "Probably." She says, "Class online is so hard and gay." He says, "It opens at 11." Kenzie says, "When do you want to go?" She says, "I can go anytime after 10:30." Dom said, "Around 11. Let's go." He said, "It's going to be so fun." I think they have Saks off Fifth there. I don't know how good it is though. Kenzie says, ooh, I'm really excited too. Dom says, I'm a roll of wood and we'll smoke at some point there. Kenzie says, should I wear those checkered pants or this little bape jacket? Dom says, I'm wearing checkered pants. Kenzie said, oh my God, how the F do we always do that? She said, but I was going to wear that outfit you picked that one day. He says, show me. She sends a picture of the outfit. She sends her a selfie picture. She says, what you think? He doesn't respond. She says, babe. Dom says, that's really cute at 9:56 a.m. He says, but it's a little cold right now. Only high of 75 today. And we're going to be there when it's 65 to 70 degrees. Kenzie says, let me show you another one. She says, should I wear long pants, long shirt? Dom says, yeah, or long pants and normal shirt and just bring a jacket and take it off when you're hot. She sends a selfie. Another selfie. He says, I like it. She said, what one? He doesn't respond. She says, babe. Sends another selfie. Kenzie says, babe, it's about to be 11. He said, that looks good. I'm about to be on the way home. He says, I was chilling with B for a sec. She said, okay, should I wear that, babe? That's fine. He says, yeah. She says, I just wanted you to tell me what to wear. She says, and I got to tell you some shit. Dom says, I'm here at 10:53 a.m. She says, I'm coming. She says, come here. She says, let me know when you leave here. Then it jumps to the next morning at 9:01 a.m. She says, morning, babe. He says, good morning, baby. She says, about to leave Polaris. Dom says, what outfit you wear? She says, my uniform right now, but I haven't picked yet. I'm a shower first. Dom says, what should I wear? She said, FaceTime me. I'll help you pick. She says, want to go to the haunted house tomorrow? 7 floors is open. Blair and Mallory. He says, maybe. She says, we should. He says, I'll see what I have to do tomorrow. He says, can we invite Kyle? She says, yes, of course. Kristen can come too then. She says, where are you at 2:28 p.m.? He says, I just got home. She says, want to hang soon? Dom says, I don't know. I might have a couple things to do. She says, I'm with Karina right now. Dom said, nice. Then at 3:52 p.m., she says, babe, are you mad at me? Look at Snap. Like, if you are, I will leave. Wait. Huh. She over at his house? She says, like, if you are, I will leave. I'm not trying to make you mad, babe. He doesn't respond. She says, call me at 4:04 p.m. 15 question marks. He says, no, I'm busy. She says, well, I'm home now. How many more runs do you have? Mallory and Blair can go tomorrow. She says, why are you texting me weird? Dom says, I don't know. I'm hungry, but I don't know what Chinese to order. I can't order Dean's house either. Kenzie says, want to get the place I got a couple days ago? It was really good. Dom sends a picture. He says, what place? He says, I don't want to leave the house. She says, the Chinese and Japanese called Wild Fusion, I think. She says, what is that? She says, I could get it, then come over. He says, if you want to, yeah. She says, let me know what you want. He says, I'm going to get started on the cereal treats. He says, let me look it up. Dom says, it's called Wild Fusion. Kenzie said, okay, bet. She says, yeah. Dom says, sweet and sour chicken, pork fried rice, pot stickers. Look what else. Kenzie said, the pot stickers were so good. Dom says, get me the fried ones and an egg roll. She said, is that all? And you want me to order right now? She says, sweet and sour, pork fried rice, fried pot stickers, egg roll. Dom says, mango chicken instead of sweet and sour. Get it ASAP. I'm hungry AF. Kenzie says, okay. She says, do you want fried rice with your mango chicken or just mango and pork fried? She says, you don't have to get, oh, wait, what time was that? 4:18. 4:47. Then she says, "You don't have to get all defensive and call me a name. How the F do you think that makes me feel?" So she called him as she was getting the food. She says, "You don't have to get all defensive and call me a name. How the F do you think that makes me feel?" He says, "I didn't call you anything." Dom says, "I just said shut up." Kenzie says, "Yeah, that's mean AF." Dom says, "Well, when you're disrespectful AF to me all the time because of certain subjects, I'm gonna get mad." Kenzie said, "It's not like it makes me sad AF when you say that, by the way." Dom says, "Well, obviously I feel insulted when you feel so threatened by a voice off my phone. You're sad, I'm mad, no one is better or worse than the other." Kenzie says, "I didn't mean to insult you, babe." Dom says, "Well, it's getting old, so now you know." That was at 5:06 PM. She says, "I'm getting the food. See you soon." He says, "Okay, babe." She says, "Do you want duck sauce?" At 5:36 PM. Then at 6:39, she says, "Are you okay? How's your tummy feeling?" Question mark, question mark. Dom said, "What?" Kenzie says, "Where you at?" He says, "In the kitchen." She said, "You low-key just left me upset. Are you coming back?" He says, "I'm chilling out here figuring out these dabs." Kenzie questions her own message. He says, "I don't know." She says, "How?" Dom says, "What?" She says, "How do you know if you're coming in here or not? And why are you not saying anything about me being upset?" Dom says, "Why are you upset?" Kenzie says, "Because you don't give me a kissy." Sad face. And that was at 8:09 PM. Then on the 18th at 8:05 AM, she says, "The weirdest shit happened." She says, "Morning, babe." He says, "Good morning, baby." He says, "What happened?" Kenzie said, "All my posters fell off my wall in the middle of the night. One is even ripped in the corner." Dom says, "You didn't do that? Was the window open?" Kenzie said, "I swear to God I didn't, and they're open, but not open enough for them to rip off my wall. Like WTF?" Dom said, "I don't know, that's weird." She says, "It's creepy AF. Like one for real ripped." She says, "Babe, red and blue or yellow and black? Or just gold?" Dom said, "What?" Kenzie says, "For your birthday. Pick one." Dom says, "Probably yellow and black." She says, "Okay, bet." She says, "I'm coming." Dom says, "I was gonna say I'm hungry." Kenzie said, "I was waiting on my mom. You want me to start making food first?" She says at 10:56 AM, like right when I walk in. "Do you just want eggs and bacon?" Dom says, "You can't get mad, but you can't blame me for freaking. Any day it could happen." And boom, I'm gone. Wait, what? How did they jump from? She says, "Do you just want eggs and bacon?" At 10:58 AM. Hour later, he says, "You can't get mad, but you can't blame me for freaking. Any day it could happen." And boom, I'm gone. Kenzie says, "I don't know why you're freaking out so much. It's just how you're talking to me. Like, I came here, I made breakfast, and you didn't even say thank you. I feel like I did everything shitty and you didn't have to yell at me. You scared me." Dom says, "Obviously, that's what I'm thinking about saying is thank you for the breakfast." "No, I'm thinking about a million other things." "You think you got anxiety?" Kenzie says, "Dom, your mom said nothing's gonna happen." Dom says, "Like you would fucking know. Don't talk about subjects you're not educated on. Now I'm effing late." He says, "Don't talk to me." Okay, and that was at 11:57 AM. Then he says, "I just got home." "I just got home." Kenzie says, "Are you sure? I'm worried about you." Dom says, "Yeah, you should have left earlier." Kenzie says, "I wanted to make sure you were okay, Dom. I'll dip, of course, but you could have gave me some bud." She says, "My mom could come now." It's cool if not, because I'll see you tonight. Dom says, I'm not going to that shit tonight. And I threw Bud out there. Kenzie says, are you serious? I didn't do shit to you. Why are you acting like I did something wrong? This shit is not fair on my life. Dom says, unfair to you? He says, like, are you for real? I can't even get anything done. Hour and a half late. He says, don't text me. She says, Dom, I didn't mean it like that. I mean, you're mad at me when I came here to make you food and made sure you were okay. She said, this shit is so sad. I left. Dom says, I'm not mad at you. I'm mad, period. Kenzie says, okay, I'm sorry, babe. She says, text me later at 1:51 p.m. Then she says, just seen Vinny. He doesn't respond. She says, so what, you going to be busy with at 9 p.m.? He says, N-word what? He says, Blair got work 5 to 10. We're not trying to go. Kenzie says, Mallory's been asking if we're still going. Her and Blair are down. Dom says, Blair just told me they both had work. I said, cool, because I didn't really want to go anyways, because I don't know if I have the time. Kenzie says, we were going to go when they were both off work. It's open 24 hours. Maybe, or Mallory said we can just go to Blair's, but I was really excited for the haunted house. Dom says, I don't want to go either. Kenzie says, you said yesterday, like plans were straight. I was excited AF and so was Mallory. He doesn't respond. She says, Dom. He says, I have a headache at 4:55 p.m. and I've been having a bad day. She says, well, you have 4 hours. She says, I really wanted to go. Dom says, okay. Kenzie says, you should go because I was excited. Me and Mallory were so excited. I'll for real be upset if you don't go. Dom says, you're being gay. Kenzie said, how is that being gay? You've had 2 hours to cool down. You really could come to the haunted house with me. Like plans were set. Tonight is the perfect night, she says. Like, I don't want to just go me, Mallory, and Blair. She says, hit me up when you have a second. He doesn't. She says, Dom. He doesn't respond. At 7:47, she says, yeah, we're probably going later, but it's good that it's open 24 hours. Dom says, okay, yeah, okay, bet, I'll probably go. He says, I'm going to take a baby perk for my headache, though. She says, are you sure that's safe, babe? But that will probably help low-key. Kenzie says, I'll keep you updated at 7:51 p.m. She says, also, what are you doing? Can I come hang so I don't fall asleep? She says, I really want to go. She says, never mind. I'm going to meet up with Mallory. Then Blair is home. We're all going to meet up there and go. Dom says, bet. She says, guess what got banned? Dom says, TikTok. Kenzie said, yes. Like OMG. Dom said, that's what's up. Kenzie says, also, it's going to be around 11. She said, so be ready. She said, what are you wearing? He says, I don't know, just gotta change my shoes. She said, okay, check Snap. About to get Mallory. And that's at 9:14. She says, babe, please text me. He says, okay. He says, I had to run somewhere. She says, I'm on the way to get Mallory. I'm excited. She says, 28 per person. And after I scoop Mallory, we're going to go to Blair's, so try to be there around 11. Dom says, okay. She says, on the way back. Dom says, to what, Blair's? And how far? She says, yeah, in like 40 minutes. Mallory lives so damn far. Also, go to Blair's. Gonna be there in 20. Dom says, okay. She says, question mark, question mark. Oh, wait, it jumps times. He says, okay, at 10:39 p.m. Then she says, question mark, at 10:53 p.m. She says, come back? Question mark, question mark. She says, whatever. She says, we were literally there. Dom says, well, we thought we weren't going to make it. Don't piss me off, he says at 10:55 p.m. Oh, I just was catching up. I'm so glad she won't have the chance for a very long time. She could never make it in the real world. You guys, what if it is possible, though? I mean, it is possible that she can get out in 15, well, what would it be now? 12 years? She's already been in there 3 or 2? 22? Yeah, she only has 12 years left. For possibility of parole. How old would she be? She's 21 right now. She would be like, what, 33? That's bullshit. Dom and Davion couldn't have their own life, but she can get out and have a life. I mean, at 33, she can still do some stuff. Lots of stuff, go back to school, have a baby. I'm sick. I'm throwing up. Okay, she says, Dom says, don't piss me off. At 9:18 on 9:18 at 10:55 p.m. She says, get me a ticket while you're there. She says, we'll find you. He says, all right. She says, Mallory needs to put her bag in your car too. And that was at 10:59 p.m. Then it jumps to the 19th at 2:16 a.m. in the morning. Text me when you're home, babe. He says, I'm home. He says at 8:14, hey, sorry I was in a bad mood yesterday. Kenzie said, it's fine. Shit like that just makes me have hella bad anxiety. How you sleep though, babe? He says, like a rock. She says, for real, same. I was tired as shit. I slept socks, hoodie, and long sleeve shirt somehow, LMFAO. Dom says, I wasn't that tired. When I got home, I stayed awake for a sec. She said, what's your plan today, babe? He says, I'm still pretty tired, but I got to pull up at Jared's at 11 or 12. She says, can I come and hang with you? He says, I do, but I'm afraid I'm going to get mad again. She says, oh, are you still in a weird mood, babe? He says, no, but I don't want to be. He says, also, when are the Moschino slides coming? She says, I'm not telling you. I'm also getting you something else. She says, bet. Dom says, bet. She says, surprise, babe. She said, yesterday I had to sneak your order size, your slide size. Dom said, what is it? She said, what is what? Dom said, my slide size. She said 10 or 43, I think, but I checked both slides. He says, bet. She says, what are you doing now at 10:39 a.m.? He says, in bed still. She says, I'm cleaning my closet. She says, hella stressed. Dom said, why is that? Kenzie says, like, it's so messy. And when I do, because from home, I need a clean, organized area. And that is not my makeup area. That is not my makeup area. And I have so much fucking makeup, I don't even know what to do with it. Dom says, get a box or some and fill it up. Kenzie says, I need a divider for my drawers so I can separate all of it. She says, look at Snap. Dom says, I used an old shoebox for my divider. Cut it up. She says, I want a specific one. I'm going to order it off Amazon. He says, okay. She says, and I got hella clothes now. Gonna be hard to fit them all. She says, LMFAO. Dom says, LOL. True. He says, I have so many clothes too. Kenzie says, me and you need massive closets. Dom says, yeah, low key. She says, some reason my mouth tastes like weed. She says, what are you wearing today? He says, I don't know. Kenzie says, I don't know what to wear. Dom says, wear sweatpants and a sweat jacket. He said, it's cold. She says, I can't wear cute outfits anymore because it's so cold. She says, wanna hang soon though? At 11:56 a.m. Question mark, question mark, question mark. He says, I was in the shower. She said, well, do you wanna? Babe? He says, maybe. She says, okay, I really want to hang. He says, okay. She said, did you go to Jared's yet? He says, no, I don't know if I'm going. She says, do you not want to hang? She says, okay. He says, not right now at 2:25 p.m. She says, why are you replying so dry and taking so long? Dom sends a screenshot of something. She says, okay, you could try and keep me updated. He says, sure. She says, what do you mean, sure? He says, I'm in North Olmsted getting something off these kids. Kenzie says, what time will you be free then? Because I feel like you don't want to see me. Of course, you don't answer the phone again. He doesn't respond. She says, like you just said you would keep me updated, then leave me undelivered for an hour. Question mark, exclamation mark, question mark, exclamation mark. She emphasizes her own message. She says, that's all you can say? Like, what is going on? More question marks. You're such a dick, she says. Why the F are you so mean to me? And the fact that question makes me mad is sus AF. You've been treating me shitty for the last 2 days and you don't give a fuck about it. He doesn't answer. She says, answer at 5:13 p.m. Dom says, no, I haven't. I've been simply trying to do my thing. She says, you have been actually. Dom says, you're being inconsiderate. Kenzie says, like taking over an hour to answering me, then replying so damn dry. Then you tell me you willing. Then you telling me you will keep me updated and that didn't happen. How's that, Dom? He says, bruh, you need to chill. She said, I'm chill. It's just frustrating. He says, what am I supposed to text you? Like, yeah, so I did this and met up with this and this. You feel me though? Plus, it's hard to answer both phones. Kenzie says, well, you blocked me on the other one, or I would have texted that. Dom says, don't say a thing about anything that has to do with anything. She says, I'm not trying to argue. Dom disliked her message. She says, stop talking to me like that. Dom disliked her message. And he said, don't be putting that. Kenzie says, I won't. Like, you hung up on me for no reason, she says. Dom says, I'm done texting before I get really effing mad. Kenzie says, don't get mad. Dom says, you straight question the F out of me. We're done texting. Conversation ends now. Okay? Question mark. Kenzie says, I asked you that to see how far you are. Dom says, no more words. Done. Cool. No messages after that. See you later. She said, this shit is sad AF. Dom says, sorry. She says, if you're sorry, you will show me you are at 6:34 p.m. Like, how do you expect me to feel? Dom says, you should be sorry too. Kenzie says, that's right. That just proves you're not sorry. Like, holy shit, you have not been yourself. And you still don't care enough to reply fast. She emphasizes her own message. No response. She says, OMG. Dom says, you're going to make me mad again. She says, I've been mad all day because of you. Like, stop acting immature AF. What the F did I do to you? You always make me feel like I did something wrong. The fact that you still can't even reply fast is so crazy. No response. Thanks for treating me like shit today and yesterday. Means a lot. Dom says, I'm really busy. She says, how? Like, can you just prioritize me a little? Like, you're making me feel so alone. Dom says, no, I couldn't. And the fact that you keep pushing me is aggravating. Kenzie says, I'm not pushing you. I'm asking you to reply in a normal time and not be mean and dry. And I don't know why you can't do that. Like, do you not care at all that I just said I feel hella alone because of you? Like, did you forget I'm your babe? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. I need to copy and paste that. Like, did you forget I'm your babe? She has to admit her guilt before she's ever released. If she doesn't do that, they can't work with her concerning the offending behavior. She ain't gonna admit shit, man. Hi, Psycho Nerd. Good to see you. You're not only doing something wrong, you're almost wrong. Cringe. What a pest. She will be there at least 20 years, but she doesn't know how to act, so expect 30. I hope so. Beautifully broken. I do. Um, like, did you forget I'm your babe? He felt trapped, more than trapped. Crazy. He says, I prioritize you before eating. Like, chill. She questions his message, her own message about, do you not care? She says, Dom, I asked for like 4 things. So are we not hanging tonight anymore? She says at 7:31 p.m. He says, probably not. Kenzie says, I should have known you would just fuck me over. Whatever, Dom. Go be sus. Thanks for ignoring me all day and hurting me. He doesn't respond. She says, so you're going to treat me like shit pretty much for 2 days in a row? Sounds sus to me. Dom says, maybe because I spent 2 racks this week on clothes with you. Dude, $2,000 on buying her clothes. I don't even get it. I don't get it. She blackmailed him. I know. But like, what the that's crazy. He says, maybe because I spent 2 racks this week on clothes with you. She says, obviously I'm thankful for that, but I told you, thank you 1 million times, and I'll say it 1 million more. What does that have to do with anything I just said? He doesn't respond. She said, it's just really sad to know that you can go through your day just fine, ignoring me and being rude and not caring when I tell you I'm sad. Dom says, okay, well, if you keep acting like this, that's never going to happen again. She said, what's never going to happen? Also, how about you stop being rude? I am not liking how I am being treated. And then you hang up on me mid fucking sentence. I'm so done with this shit. I shouldn't be holding back tears all day. Emphasizes her message. He doesn't give a shit, doesn't respond. She says, this is not okay. You really give 0 fucks about me. Dom says, it really isn't. She says, when I'm crying on the phone and you treat me like that? Like what? What the F happened to you? Dom says, if you think that, then don't talk to me. She said, what the F is wrong with you? Like, WTF? You're acting like we're just not together. Dom says, if you got such a problem, then break up with me. She said, is that what you really want? Like, all I have been trying to do is see you. And you have been mean as fuck. Dom says, no. She says, like, I have your back even when you're wrong. And you can't even talk to me without getting mad. Dom says, but you make it seem like you do. Kenzie says, I shouldn't feel guilty all day. Dom says, okay, you know what? Let's return all the clothes I got you. And I'll stop doing my stuff. And I'll have all the free time in the world. I'll quit right now. And be your bitch. She says, you don't need to do that, question mark, question mark, question mark. He says, if you really want to broomstick my ass, you fucking psycho. She says, I just want time with you. He says, like, for real, I shouldn't want to kill myself. She says, I don't know. I know you didn't just call me quote unquote fucking psycho. I'll just pretend you're joking because I know, you know, I can be a lot worse than this. There it is. Judge Russo, I would like to show you. I'm just kidding. She probably saw these messages, but stop Mackenzie and no, dude. The judge, I bet, read this and was like, yeah, that bitch is not a good person. I hope she did. I hope. She says, I'll pretend you're joking because I know I can be a lot worse than this. This is a threat because she been thinking about blackmailing her. She thinks about blackmailing him all the time. If you guys haven't caught on to that, or if you haven't not heard the text messages before, she tries to blackmail him all the time. She's like, I'm going to call police on you. You're a graper. You dated a younger girl, younger than 18, et cetera, et cetera. That's why he didn't leave her either. It's actually really sad. She would threaten him and be like, I'm going to call the police on you and tell them you have weed and you raped me because you dated someone under 18 and your family, this and that. Kenzie really is disgusting. But let's move on. She says, like, I don't know how many times I tell you that you cannot talk to me. Wait, like, I don't know how many times I tell you that you can talk to me and tell me how you feel, and I'll always be there for you, but you never let me. Dom says, if I kill myself one day, it's because of the stress. Yo. No one should ever make you feel like that. Whether you're dating, married, fucking, whatever it is. Booty call. It's like so Groundhog Day. Dude, it is, 𝗲𝗍. It is a Groundhog Day. I don't know. I can empathize with Dom. This is just emotionally draining. She says, don't even say that shit. WTF. Like, if doing what you do causes you so much stress, then chill out. Dom says, no, it would be fine. But you make me want to fucking scream during the whole process. Kenzie said, so is what you're trying to say is that I'm the problem? Dom says, honestly, just F off. Don't fucking text me. You're making me mad AF. Kenzie said, I'm trying to talk this shit out with you at 8:43 p.m. Dom says, no, you're fucking bad at it then. Don't effing text me before I freak the F out. Kenzie says, whatever, Dom. I'm just trying to not go to sleep sad AF again. Dom says, F you. You have me so mad. Kenzie says, how? Dom says, I never want to deal with this again. She says, telling you I'm sad makes you mad? 15 question marks later. Just hit me up later, Dom. This shit makes me so sad. Dom says, this shit makes me so effing mad. Like, you don't even effing know. Like, you make me want to hurt someone. You know what I'll do for you. I'll just become a Xan head again. Kenzie says, are you trying to make me cry? Dom says, then I won't care. I won't get stressed or mad. Kenzie says, why do you keep trying to hurt me? This is like a perfect example, this situation right here. Dom used to have substance issues problems. And I feel like she knows that, and she brings him to that point of wanting to use drugs again, like substances. I know it makes me like one-sided when I say I come here and judge Kenzie, but not Dom, in the sense of because she killed him, right? But like, yeah, Dom had his issues, had his shit. But I feel like she brings that side out of him, and it just makes it worse on top of all the other toxic stuff that they're experiencing and going through. That's just one more thing to add to it, like his substance problem and how she makes him want to use again. Like, it really is so sad. I know we joke about it, and we do. We don't fucking like Kenzie. She cannot sit with us. Kenzie, we don't want you to get parole. But like at the same time, like it really is truly sad because Dom does have some like mental stuff going on. And I think Kenzie does too. I think they both have like mental health issues. And so, it's just like shitty all the way around. But she says, why do you just keep trying to hurt me? Dom says, and you can just complain to me all you want about how I'm busy. Kenzie said, thanks, Dom. Is that what you wanted? He doesn't respond. She says, you don't understand that you're the only person I hang with ever. Maddie hates me. Mallory's 40 minutes away. No one wants to be my friend. So if you know no one wants to be your friend, yeah, Abby. Like, she's so young and immature, she's not able to, like, or maybe she is. I don't fucking know. She's not able to, like, comprehend, like, they are really young. We can't forget that either. They're, like, 18, so she's, like he's 18 here, and she's, like, just turned 16 or turning 16, right? Um, she says, "No one wants to be my friend. Like, I have no one but you, and you don't even want me around." Dom says, "Well, instead about worrying about hanging with people, go get money and grind. Being great comes with sacrifices. I ain't going nowhere, smoking blunts, doing nothing all day. You understand? Question mark. If you can't let me do my thing, it's not gonna work out. Because when it finally pays off, I don't think you're gonna be complaining to me all day then. So don't complain to me now." Kenzie says, "I always let you do your shit. I only get mad when you're rude to me and ignore me. I would just go hang with someone else when you're busy, but everyone hates me, so I can't." Maybe go hang out with your mom? Natalie Shirilla. Oh, wait, she doesn't wanna hang with you. She doesn't wanna deal with it and being a parent. She just wants to slide you right over to the Russos. Let you move yourself in because no one invited you, by the way, and sabotage Dom and his life and his family. Dom says, "No, you fucking don't. Don't effing say that. Don't fucking lie. Everyone hated me too." Kenzie says, "I do when you are nice and reply fast, Dom." Dom says, "Well, I can't." She says, "How do you think it feels when no one wants to hang out with you?" Dom says, "When I'm driving, it makes me want to grind and be better than them. Not effing complaining about it like you." He emphasized his own message. She said, "Thanks for making me feel worse. The last 2 days make me want to kill myself." Dom says, "I'm sorry, but I have a lot of things on my mind. Us not chilling for a couple days because I'm busy is good." And that was at 9:18 p.m. Then it jumps to the next morning at 8:30 a.m. "Good morning, babe." He says, "Sorry about yesterday. I don't want to fight. You can text me when I'm busy. You can't text me when I'm busy, though, and expect me to answer like I'm on the phone enough. My eyes are always effed up." Kenzie says, "Morning." She says, "I miss you." Sad face at 11:43 p.m. or a.m. Then she says, "I'm gonna be home soon" at 2:34 p.m. He says, "For sure." She says, "Wanna hang?" He said, "Sure." She says, "Bet, are you free right now? Like, can I get dropped off?" Dom says, "Yeah, I got a bunch of mislabeled ones again, and I'm making cereal bars and stuff." She says, "Okay, bet, I'll be over in a little." He says, "Do you wanna get food?" She said, "Yes, I'm starving." He says, "I'm making bacon right now, then we can order something." She says, "Bet, I'm hungry as shit. What are we getting?" She says, "At 3:23 p.m." Then it jumps to 10:07 p.m. She says, I'm leaving at 10:30, babe." He says, "Okay, babe." I would say, don't let me stop you. Go ahead, Kenzie, but that's me. I know Dom didn't want to stress his mom. I wish he would have opened up to her. I know. I really do believe this. I do. I think if the Russo family knew how bad it was, they would have tried to intervene. I wonder why Dom didn't break up with her, because she was blackmailing him and threatening him. And I think he just, that's evil. What's gonna keep her in prison? I say 30 years, if not longer. She's a follower. She's not gonna act up. I think they listen to all of our stuff though. So, you would hope that Natalie is trying to tell her to change, but I don't know. I don't know if I really truly believe that. I would hope so. I would hope that now in 2026 things are different, but I don't know if someone like Kenzie can change. Maybe. But she's actually acting up. Yeah. I think Davion tried grabbing the wheel, and that's how he ended up on top of Dom. Mm, maybe grabbing the wheel or maybe the impact got him to end up at the front on top of Dom. You know, the impact into the wall. The Russo families were having health problems and Mackenzie played on it. Yeah, Ruth, you're right. She didn't sleep with him very much. She was a goddess, remember? Yeah, it's a very interesting relationship. She says, "Morning, babe," at 7:36 a.m. He says, "Good morning, babe." She says, I'm about to dip Polaris. I have no classes today." She says, "Today sucked. I low key am not liking Polaris." He says, "Why is that?" He says, "I have a headache." She says, "Literally, my teacher is just annoying as shit, gives way too much work, and goes way too fast." So welcome to school. Like, she says, "And I have to see Audrey every day." Tell me why Morgan looks directly at me and hugs Audrey. Dom says, "I don't know, probably because you threaten everyone." She says, "I really don't." Question mark, question mark. Dom says, "You didn't threaten Haley? Question mark. She said, "So everyone is Haley?" Dom said, your logic is retarded. You know, I hate that word. She says, "Why the F are you coming for me? Like, literally, what the fuck?" He says, "You're being arrogant." She says, "Thanks, Dom." He doesn't respond. She said, "I just won't tell you I had a bad day again if you're going to make me feel worse." She has a bad day every day. Like, I'm so sick of her shit. Literally. He says, "Well, I'm just trying to give you logic here. When you were saying stuff to Haley, did I say, 'Are you Karina?' I mean, right though?" Kenzie says, "Whatever. My first day of school is tomorrow. I don't know what to wear," she says at 11:19 a.m. Dom says, "I don't know, just pick something. It's the same as every other day. I'll come eat lunch with you if I'm allowed," he says. She said, "Oh my God, that will make me so happy." Yeah. Dom says, "Yeah, then I can eat chicken sandwich." He says, "Check Insta. You really think this dumbass can be president?" Kenzie says, "Let me check." At 11:27. Then she says, "Want to hang today? I don't have any school." Wait, is it still the same day? That's weird. She says, "I don't have any school." Dom says, "Yeah, you want to put singles in your account today?" She says, "Yeah, sure, when you want to hang." He says, "Actually, if I have to drive to Canton, I probably couldn't bring you because it's straight hood." She says, "Yeah, I get that. I could just stay at your house and you could go." Dom says, "Well, I gotta see when I have to go." Kenzie says, "Let me know, babe." Dom says, "Okay, he's not answering, so we can load up the card." She says, "Okay, bet." Dom says, "And I need breakfast. What should I eat?" She said, "I don't know. To be honest, I just ate. I'm full AF." She says, "I had eggs." She said, "And want a scoop or do you want me to get a ride?" He says, "I don't care. Yeah, I'll probably make some eggs and bacon real quick." She says, "Want a scoop?" He said, "Yeah, let me eat first." She said, "Okay, bet." She says, "I'm ready," at 11:55. Then she says, "How long, babe?" He says, "I'm eating." She says, "Okay. So do you want me to just get a ride, babe?" He says, "If you want." She says, "I thought you were going to get me, but I can also get a ride." He says, "I'm about to leave to do something. I can swoop." She says, "Bet, scoop me, babe." He says, "Okay." She says, "I'm ready." She says, "How far?" He says, "Can I hang with Sheen for a while? Then we can chill." Kenzie says, "Yeah, I wish you would have told me before I got ready and been waiting downstairs. Hit me up after." He says, okay. She says, how long? He says, I don't know. We're about to shower, then chill. What should I wear? Kenzie says, I don't know. Wear all gray. He says, okay. She says, I found a way to hide my sty at 1:39 p.m. Then at 3:49, she says, what the did he just say about me? Did he call me a bitch? Dom says, no. He said, I don't want her to hear that shit. Kenzie says, oh, you promise? And did Sheen leave? Or do you not want to hang anymore? Dom says, Sheen didn't come yet. Kyle came real quick and grabbed stuff. Kenzie says, oh, so is that a no to hanging soon? Dom says, I don't know. I'll hit him up and see. If not, we'll hang. She says, let me know ASAP. He says, okay. Why? She says, because I want to know if we're chilling soon, so I know if I should make other plans. But I'll wait for you. But if he don't answer, can I come? She questions her on message. He says, okay, 1 sec. She says, what's the move at 4:24 p.m.? So literally 12 minutes later. He says, I don't know. He didn't answer, but now I'm talking to this dude. I might go to Canton. She says, can you drive me to school tomorrow? I need to be at Polaris at 7:50. He says, yeah. He says, can you make sure I'm up? She says, no one can drive me and I literally can't ride the bus. Dom says, I got you, babe. She says, can you just set an alarm? I'll also call you. He says, I will, but you call me. He says, I'll go to bed early. He says, maybe I can start driving you every day, but not after the Lakers game. LOL. She says, you're really the best. Thank you, babe. She says, I'll call you as soon as I'm up, and if it's okay, you don't drive me after the Lakers game. He says, LOL. She says, I'm going to test some new cars at 5:02 p.m. Might get an old Mercedes. Dom says, that would be raw AF. Kenzie says, I know. Or a BMW. Both 14K. Dom says, what year and model? 2009 E-Class 350. She said, 2008 BMW. She says, someone's pulling in your driveway. Dom says, Jared. She said, 2003 SL class, Mercedes. What color's cooler? She says, I seen Jada. She says, bruh, ask Jared to send me that Malibu car for cheap. I'm about to drive past in a sec. He says, LOL. Kenzie says, how nice is this car? Dom says, it's pretty dope, for real. Kenzie says, I'm probably getting that. Kenzie, how about you get a damn job? I mean, you couldn't even keep your Dunkin' Donuts job. Like, Kenzie would ever fight someone, they would snap her like a twig. She had an eating disorder. I believe that. I do, which is really sad too. Facts. I'm surprised you're able to keep eating these after so long. I'm a profesh. Where did the broom and the ass come in? I don't know. Beautifully broken. Yeah, she needs to get a job. She needs to keep her job at Dunkin', okay? Keep your fucking Dunkin' Donuts job and sell those jelly donuts. She says, I'm probably getting that. He says, you should get an E-Class. Hold on, let me check my camera real quick. Someone's at my door. It's probably Natalie Shirilla. Just kidding. She said, what's that? He says, frog eyes. What? Hold up. He said, you should get an E-Class. She said, what's that? He said, frog eyes. Is that a typo? She said, is it under 20K? She says, I need. Yes. Dom says, yes, it's raw AF. She said, send me pic. He says, look up Ben's class, 2002 to 2009. Any of those. She says, bet. He sends a pic. She says, that car hot AF. She says, want to hang when I'm home at 7:31 p.m. He doesn't respond. She questions her own message. She says, "This is the most frustrating thing ever trying to find a car. I'm actually so mad right now. Why did you leave me on red?" He says, "It was by accident. I didn't know." He says, "I do, but I don't want to be up late." She says, "I can't be up late. I have school tomorrow. I can leave at 10 or 9. She says, "You can still drive me tomorrow?" Dom says, "Yeah, that's why I want to just chill me, then I can drive you tomorrow." She said, "It's okay if you don't want to hang out, babe. Let me know." She says, "I'm leaving at 8:04 p.m. He says, "Leaving where?" She said, "The car place. Do you want to hang? Or you can come by my house, maybe." He says, "I'm about to eat dinner. I don't know if I want to hang. I'll see you tomorrow morning." He says, "I want to be able to get up." She says, "Okay, babe." She says, "Thanks again for driving me. It means a lot." He said, "Anything, of course, anything for my baby." And then she sends a bunch of TikTok links. He says, "Yeah, right," at 11:02 p.m. She says, question mark, question mark, question mark. She says, "Oh, wait." He says, "Yeah, right," at 11:02 p.m. She says, question mark, question mark, question mark, at 7:03 a.m. on the 22nd. "You said you had alarm for 7, and you're not even answering my calls." Oh my gosh, she's sending a bunch of like symbols and question marks and stuff. He sends a pic. Then he says, "You look so cute." She says, "I love you, babe," at 7:57 a.m. She says, "I'ma miss you." Dom says, "I wish I could be there with you." Kenzie says, "Me too. Have to turn my phone in. I'll talk to you later." He says, I'll visit you at school when I'm allowed to." She says, "Yay." And that was 7:58 a.m. Then she says, "Hey, babe," at 1:23 p.m. He said, "What's up, babe?" She says, "I'm about to be in my last class. What are you doing today?" He says, "Cleaning up and meeting with big homie." He says, "We can chill later." She says, "Yay. What you cleaning?" He says, "Everything." She says, "I'm in math right now. It's gay AF." He said, "Math is the best subject." She said, "Lies. It's hard." Dom says, "Not when you love it." Kenzie says, "It's confusing." Dom says, "Sometimes." She says, "Check Snap." She says, "Can you drive me home? I have no ride." "Babe?" He doesn't respond. She sends a picture. He says, "What about it?" I think she sent a car. She said, "Meant to send it to my mom, LOL." She says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Doing some runs." She says, "I want to hang soon." He says, "Let me meet someone, then we can." She said, "Yay," at 4:53 p.m. 5:40, she says, "What's the move? Let me know as soon as I can come." He says, "I'm home now, taking a shit." She says, "Want to hang? Like, can I come over now?" Question mark, question mark, question mark. He doesn't respond. She says, "I'm going to fall asleep." He says, "I'm not home. I don't know if I want to chill." Kenzie said, "You just said we could. Why don't you want to chill now?" Dom says, "Well, because I have to burn these boxes real quick. Then I probably have to go to Jared's. I don't know if I want to have to leave Jared's early." Kenzie says, "I swear you never want to hang with me during the day anymore." Dude, he hangs with you during the day, like every day. Hi, Yassine. Just saw you pop in here. We got you, Melly. Take us to the door with you. Hmm? I can never, I know, Grey Knight. It's gross. Oh, beautifully broken. I'm sorry to hear that. I love mangoñadas. She says, "I swear you never want to hang with me during the day anymore." She says, "Or the night." Dude, he hangs with her every single day. Like, really? She says, "Or the night." He doesn't respond. She says, like, question mark, question mark, question mark. "This is so annoying. I was literally waiting for you to be home." She says, like, I didn't go look at cars because I thought we were hanging. Now it's closed. Dom says, I don't know. You don't tell me these things. So that's your fault, for real. She says, well, you waited last second to tell me you don't want to hang. How annoying is that? She says at 6:41 p.m. I was waiting and you don't care at all. Dom says, please don't call me. I'm trying to get home to shit myself. She says, OMG, I'm so mad right now. Thank you for making me wait, then telling me we can't hang. Dom says, bruh, I just said I don't want to have to leave Jared's early. Kenzie says, you're with him like every day. How late do you even need to be there? Like, can you only hang with me at 6 a.m. now? You can't even talk on the phone. Like, bruh. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Dom says, bruh, because his mom will be sketch. That's why I can't be there for only like 20 minutes. Kenzie says, I don't care if you're there for a long time, though. When I get bored, I'll just go in the car. Dom says, but it'll be late. You have school. She says, how late? Can you please just make time for me? I want to hang with you. Like, why don't you want to hang with me anymore during the day? Dom says, do I really have to explain it again? Kenzie said, this shit is so annoying. Like, I'm so annoyed. The fact that I waited. Nothing to say again. Cool. He says, sorry, I had my phone in my pocket. He says, if I don't go to Jared's, we can chill. She says, well, when are you going to know? Question mark. He says, I have to go meet up with these kids again. She says, she puts a little emoji face. She says, so is that you saying no at 8:15 p.m.? Dom says, yeah, I couldn't bring you with us. I don't trust these kids yet. Kenzie said, okay, you're really upsetting me. Don't forget about your alarm at 7. Of course, you still can't answer the phone, she says. You answer like 10% of the time. Dom says, I'm sorry, I'm smoking a blunt. Kenzie said, with those random ass kids, quote unquote, I'm sorry, never learn. Dom says, it's literally a couple extra letters. Letters? Kenzie says, exactly. So I don't know why you can't type it. Oh, because he typed, I'm sorry, and put SRY, and she cares. I don't know how he dealt with this shit. He said, it's literally a couple extra letters. She said, exactly. So I don't know why you can't type it. Like, if you really wanted to hang, you would make the time for me instead of smoking a blunt with weird ass kids. Dom says, you don't understand. Business meeting. Kenzie says, whatever. I just wish you would make more time for me. Set your alarm for tomorrow. Dom says, I got you. She says, you really never know what to say. Like, you give the lowest amount of effort when it comes to texting and hanging out with me. Like, this shit is depressing. He doesn't respond. She says, thanks, Dom. He finally responds at 10:03. He says, okay, I'll start trying harder. I'm taking a little hiatus from my stuff soon anyways. She says, FaceTime me though. He says, okay, babe. He says, I just got home. I'm tired, so I'll be able to go to bed and get up. She said, did you set an alarm? I love how we haven't hung out in 3 days. Is she lying? Because we've been going day by day in these messages, and I'm pretty sure they've been hanging out this whole time. Like, it only skips every once in a while, a day. She says, I love how we haven't hung out in 3 days. He says, I did. Then the next morning on the 23rd at 6:22 a.m., she says, I don't have Polaris today. It's tomorrow. He said, what? So I'm up for nothing? She said, it gets confusing because some days I go, then it changes. Dom said, it's okay. She says, I'm sorry, babe. Make some time for me today, she says at 7:47 a.m. I know she watches his house. She's too much. Hey, pizza. Hey, abuelita. She says, "Make some time for me today. I wanna hang with you." He says, "Okay." At 9:10 in the morning, he says, "What are you doing?" She says, "Polaris shit right now. I don't have class. I only have 1 class today, ends at 1:40 though, 12:40 to 1:40." He says, "How?" She says, "On my computer." He says, "Amazing." She said, "It's gay AF. I have to be certified to sanitize." "Hang at 1:40?" He says, "Yeah." She says, "Yay." She says, "I'm excited to hang." At 11:57, she says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Getting stuff done before I have to go to Jared's." She says, "I'm about to test a car." Dom says, "I thought you had school." She says, "I do. I'm on school right now on my phone." He says, "Nice." She said, "When are you going to be free? I want to hang." He says, "When are you free?" She says, "I'm going to be free after I test this car, maybe around 1:40." Dom says, "I have to go to Jared's. I don't know if I can wait that long to go." Kenzie says, "How long are you going to be there? When you want to go?" "I can be quick for you, babe." Dom says, "I want to go now or about 12:30." She says, "I'm gonna be done around 1. You can't wait any longer?" And then she says, "That wasn't supposed to be mean, babe. I was just asking if you can wait a little longer." Dom says, "Well, we all on a time schedule here, Kenzie." She says, "Can you please just wait a little longer for me? I don't even want to test this car. I'm trying to be back fast." She says, "Why?" Dom says, "Why do you always do this to me?" Kenzie says, "Do what? Why are you trying to argue with me right now? Like, I just asked to wait a little longer." Dom says, "No, like, I'm always trying to get shit done. Then we have the rest of the day together, and you just, like, always try to get in between. Like, I haven't even showered yet, etc." She says, "I'm on the way home. I thought you wanted me to come. Are you bringing me to Jared's?" He doesn't respond. "Are you mad at me or something?" Doesn't respond. "What do you think about Toyota Corolla?" Dom says, "No, I'm just super ticked all the time. You know how I am. Just like the miscommunication makes me frustrated. I'm not mad at you at all." Kenzie says, "I'm sorry, babe." Dom says, "I love you, baby." She says, "Love you too, babe. What do you think about me driving a Corolla?" He says, "What year?" He said, "If it's a new one, yeah. Or like get a Toyota Corolla LE or something." She sends a picture of a car. He says, "That one looks like a Lexus." Kenzie says, "I hate the inside." Dom says, "Toyota Camry LE." He sends Google links. She says, "I like that." Dom says, "Camrys are so nice." Kenzie says, "I don't know about that one I'm in though right now. It looks weird." Dom says, "Corolla gay." She says, "Yeah, for real." Dom says, "LOL." She says, "I'm gonna test a Chrysler convertible." Dom says, "What Chrysler?" She says, "I don't know. I'll show you when I'm there." She says, "When are you coming home?" At 1:59 PM. "My mom is being annoying as fuck." 6 question marks. Dom said, "At Jared's." She says, "I didn't ask." Literally, "Don't send me pre-typed messages." Question mark, question mark, question mark. I asked, "When are you coming home?" I literally hate pre-typed messages so much. She emphasizes her message. Dom says, "Well, I was hitting the blunt. After the blunt, I'll go home." She says, "Then just wait to text me because it's annoying AF when you send me fake texts." But they're not fake texts. They're just pre-typed. Um, she's dumb, I guess. I don't know. Let me know if you care in the chat about those. She says, "Don't send me fake texts." 2:21 PM. She says, "Want a scoop?" "How long?" He says, "And eat." She says, "How much longer?" Dom says, "Can I go home first?" "I don't know, by 3:30." He says, "My messages are weird right now." She says, "Are you telling me to just get a ride over?" Dom says, "Can I get home and eat first? Then I'll pick you up." She says, "So how long do I have?" He said, "Why is that a I'm almost home." She says, "So you're eating first." Dude, like, let the poor guy get home. and eat. It's crazy. She says, so you eating first? He says, yeah, I need food. She says, me too. He says, so I'm not agitable, like agitated. She says, I understand. She says, please don't take forever though. He said, I won't. He says, I just got home at 3:28 p.m. She says, I'm excited to see you, babe. He says, what should we do? She says, whatever you want to do. I look really cute today. He says, okay. She says, just come and get me as soon as you can. I'm ready whenever. He says, okay, I'm about to be done eating. She says, yay. He says, can we clean up the house real quick too? She says, of course. Dom says, bet. She says, let me know when you're on the way. I'm ready. He says, I'm on the way. She says, yay, at 4:08 p.m. Then he says, Bernie's doing a giveaway. Kenzie said, of course he is. Dom says, why does he copy everything I do? Kenzie said, because you're successful and he wants that for him. That shit annoying AF though. If you don't fix, there will be an issue. Oh, now they're fighting. She says, that's shit annoying AF though at 4:08 p.m. Then she says, if you don't fix this, there will be an issue at 5:20. Dom says, Kenzie, this is so stupid. Kenzie says, I deserve love, respect, and you can give that 60% of the time. Dom says, I said you can post pictures of me. I don't care. Kenzie says, like, I cry all the time. And whenever I need anyone to talk to, I have no one. Dom says, yeah, you don't have to. She says, your words hurt more than other people's words do. Dom says, Kenzie, a lot of this shit is barely a big deal. Like, I'm about to freak the F out. Kenzie says, you don't understand how bad it hurts when you just walk away and leave me here crying or tell me to leave. Dom says, like, you make a picture so stressful. Kenzie says, like, we could be chilling right now. Why? Why? Why do you have to be like that? Dom, if you don't come back, he says, why? What will happen? She says, there's like 30 shards of glass in my hand. I have cleaned everything up. Dom says, you could have just vacuumed then. She says, like, you always make it seem like it's my fault. Like, why don't you care? Dom says, why don't you care? She says, I can literally buy you a new rig. I do, she said. Dom says, it's not the same. She says, I tried to help before you just left me here. So it won't be special if I get you it. Thanks. He says, it won't be as special at all because it's not 3 years old. Oh, so she went over there. They were smoking. She broke his rig. She says, are you coming back at 5:40 p.m.? He says, no. She says, what the F? Why? Where even are you? I can't believe you. Something changed. He says, I'm driving. What do you mean? She says, you can be the adult you are and come back, or you can keep acting like that and make everything worse. Dom doesn't respond. She says, I mean, something changed you. Like you haven't been yourself. I'm low-key starting to think Angelo's making you hate me. No, Kenzie, he's not changing. He's just becoming a different version of himself because of your control and what you're doing and how you are in this relationship with him. He said she doesn't respond. She says, like, if you want to not be toxic, you will come back. Dom says, Kenzie, I'm not dealing with this anymore. You do this every time. She says, you act like I'm nothing. Dom says, stop playing the victim. Exactly. Stop playing the victim. And guess what she's doing right now? In that appeal where she got denied. Playing the victim because she didn't know about fucking leap year. And so her attorneys were late. That's hilarious. Dom says, stop playing the victim. She says, so you're the victim? Question mark. Like, you didn't just get mad at me for getting excited to post you. Dom says, no, I didn't. Kenzie says, you did though. Dom says, I didn't say anything. Kenzie said, you said I'm disgusting. Maybe because you are. Hello? Like Earth to Kenzie. As we know how they text each other in the same house. I can't stand that. Issues, you say? Oh, the smoke? Who's smoking in the chat? Who's smoking and didn't invite me? I sleep with my nightlights. My grown ass is scared of the dark. Always have been. That's funny. She says, you said I'm disgusting. Dom says, and then you made it a big deal. Kenzie says, I didn't make it a big deal. I just started crying. Dom said, good, twist my words. Kenzie says, because you just know how to hurt me. Dom says, honestly, let's just chill the 26th. He's like, let's take a 3-day break. You do? You sleep with a lamp on? I can't sleep with stuff on. I was reading Beautifully's comment. I don't sleep. My shit better be dark like the demons coming out of the fucking walls. Like, I like it dark. It's scary. She says, Dom says, honestly, let's just chill the 26th. She says, are you for real? If you do that, we will have a huge issue. Doesn't respond. Imagine being able to say that. Like, my effing hand is bleeding from this glass, and all you care about is yourself. Dom says, why the F did you grab it? She says, even though you've been mean to me most of the time I've been here, I jumped up to clean that fucking glass so you wouldn't have to clean it. Like, you give 0 Fs. Dom says, you could have just vacuumed it. Kenzie said, honestly, this shit does not feel good. I feel like you've been treating me shitty AF for the last 3 days. Dom says, I think I'm going to kill myself. These are like the points, what I'm saying. Yeah, I know. You're in the middle of the storms, Jen. Just come on over to California. This is when I think he just gets so fed up with it, and emotionally and mentally he's just like over it, because he does this every couple months. He gets to this point. He says, I think I'm just going to KMS. She says, you are not. I'll tell your mom. Dom says, no, like literally. She says, Dom, I swear to God. He says, going down Boone, going 80 down Boone. She says, you are not. I'm calling the cops if you don't effing stop. Dom says, then I'll actually KMS, kill myself. She says, like, what the F are you trying to do? Dom says, this is it. Just might kill myself. She says, are you trying to hurt me? Why are you saying this to me? Like, if you don't stop, there will be issues. Who the F says that to anyone? Like, you must want to hurt me. No response. F this. Dom says, so I just don't want to feel this anymore. I hate this. I think he's talking about, this whole relationship. I hate this. He's talking about the relationship. He hates that relationship. He says, I hate this. She says, then come back. There's a million other ways. Dom says, yeah, but you choose the same way. Kenzie says, the fact that you just say that to me, I never do. I never would. I never take the PUSS way out. Like, never say that to me again. Like, I swear you make me feel like you don't even like me. Dom says, whatever. It was all a good time till you wanted to cry over a picture. Like, I do all these things for my anger issues and you don't help at all. Kenzie says, like, when you see me excited about a picture and you just don't kill my happiness. I can't say shit without you getting mad. That's why I just don't say anything. I could literally say I feel sad and you would get so mad. Do you think it's hard for you? It's stressful for me too. I have to think before I say anything around you. I try so effing hard to keep you not mad. You will never understand. You can be a man and come back or choose to be a child. He doesn't respond. She says, like, I haven't been able to even put this effing glass down. Dom, I swear to God, come back right now. No response. She says, or I will tell your mom. She said, my hand is stinging. Dom says, tell my mom and throw it in the trash. She says, you don't even care. OMG. Dom says, what do you mean? She says, like, I tell you my whole hand is bleeding and you just don't care. I offered to buy you a new effing rig. You don't care. Dom said, it's a $50 rig. I don't care. Kenzie said, then why are you still throwing a fit? If you don't care, then just come back. Dom says, Kenzie, I don't want you to cry over a picture. I said you could post the effing picture. I just don't like the stressful shit. Stop being an effing child. Being in a relationship isn't about posting effing pictures. Exactly, Dom. Exactly, Dom. Yeah. She says, come back. We can talk like adults. No, you can't, sadly. This is why we're here, reading these through an evidence package that was given to the judge in your trial. She says, because I know I am mature enough. No. Dom says, you're 16. I'm 18. We are far from mature. Thank you, Dom. At least he knows it. She says, I'm mature AF. Oh, brother. You're choosing to act like this, she says. Dom says, if you were mature, you wouldn't cry over a picture. She says, I didn't cry over a picture. I cried because I feel it's like an excuse. Dom says, I told you exactly why, but okay. Kenzie says, like, you don't understand. Like, you're the only person in the world who doesn't want anyone to know it's their birthday. Kyle's going to probably post you. Everyone's going to post you. And I'm just going to have to sit there. Dom says, bruh. Kenzie says, please come back so we can talk. Dom says, I don't ask for people to post me at 6:00 p.m. So she wanted to post him all over. Yeah, all over an Instagram picture. It's his birthday. She wanted to post it and then getting in a fight about it. These are things I would never deal with, ever. He says, I don't ask for people to post me. She said, like? She said, that's a point. You don't ask people to do it because they effing care about you. Dom says, like, if he said anything, I'd say no. Kenzie said, that's what people do for birthdays. And I feel like it's only an issue because it's me and you don't want people to know. And I will always feel like that. Dom says, okay, well, I don't like my birthday. I don't like the attention. So I'm done with my birthday. Kenzie said, come back so we can talk. Dom says, can we just forget it? She says, no, we can't. Dom says, you can take the slides back. Kenzie says, I'm so done. Dom says, my new birthday is March 5th. Kenzie said, this. Dom says, why? I just don't want to deal with this shit. We don't have to do anything for my birthday again. We can just have another birthday for you. She says, did you leave? With 6 question marks. She says, come in your room at 7:03 p.m. Dom says, not right now. Kenzie said, soon? Question mark. Could I hit the bong or something? It literally drives me crazy that they're fighting and they're in the same house and they're texting, but they're fighting. So, like, they're not in the same room. Who does this? And don't lie. Tell me in the chat right now. I don't think any of you guys do stupid shit like this, but you never know. Appeal denied and notifications missed. Hi. Lakeside. Oh, I'm sad. Was she living there? Not yet. This is still before she moves in because remember, Dom has Miss Russo's house and then they have like a side house. You do. Shut up, Rudy. And then they have like a side house. And he ends up moving in that house. But then she ends up moving herself in. So right now they're still under Miss Russo's house roof. Yeah, Robert, we missed you. Man, is that in denial? I had to be. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was. Hi, meow, meow. Parents do that. Do what? Never. Should be flying in the same room, right? Like, why be in the other room? Just be fighting in the same room, okay? Thanks. I want to see how she works her way into his house. It's coming up. 2021, things are different. So get ready. Hold on to your pantalones because the dynamic really changes. Like, pay close attention to right now because in 2021, he's like all about her. He's like, yeah, I know. It's weird. Well, not really, but things change. She says, could I hit the bong or something? She says, my anxiety is up. He said, sure. She says, want to take a dab together? He says, no, I'm mad. I'm upset with everything. She says, is everything okay? I heard hella yelling. And I'm sorry, babe. Is there anything I can do to help you? Dom says, no, I live a miserable life. She says, your life hasn't even started if you think about it. Ooh, that's kind of creepy now that I'm reading that back. Because, like, your life hasn't even started. She ends up ending it. Still a little creepy. I absolutely love the Shirillas misstep. Okay, Lakeside. I'm glad you're here. It is so Natalie to miss the deadline. Can they I'm glad you saw that, Lakeside. Can they do something about that? Like, if they missed it because of the attorney's deadline? Can she like reappeal? We're going to be reading the older appeals tomorrow. She needs to just leave him alone. She couldn't just leave him alone. That's why she killed him. She was like, if it ain't me, it's nobody. So scary. She says, your life hasn't even started if you think about it. Dom says, it seems miserable. I'm miserable. I'm a miserable person. She says, is it me? Yes. Yes, it's you. Yes, it's you. Hallelujah. You know, like when the light comes on, like, this is it. The moment you realized, it's you, bitch. It's you. Nope. Game over. They can sue their appellate attorney for malpractice. No. No way. There's nothing. You know, Natalie got on the phone. She's like, you did this. She's literally getting ready to sue as we speak. Natalie Shirilla, if you're listening, we would like to interview you on what you plan to do about this. True story. Dang, that sucks. That makes me a little bit happy. She says, is it me or just in general? No, it's you, Kenzie. He says everything. She said, so me? Babe, I care about you a lot. I don't want you to be miserable. He doesn't respond. She says, where you at 7:24 p.m.? Text me back. You're worrying me. Dom? Oh my God. She emphasizes her message, removes an exclamation. Why are you not answering me? Dom says, I'm talking to my mom. ... She says, okay, I just wanted to make sure you were okay. Dom says, okay. She says, come in here after. Or do you want me to come out? He says, okay. He says, when I come back, let's just not talk much. She says, I know. I was just going to hug you. Do you want me to come out? I have to leave at 10. Babe, can you come now? I've been in here for a while. He says, why do you have to leave in 10? She says, at 10. ... Dom says, no, I'm not coming. I'm just going to be mad about the TV and you have to leave soon anyways. She said, what? Dom says, you might come in a sec if you're leaving at 10. I might come in a sec if you're leaving at 10. She says, please just come. I've been in here for so long. Dom says, okay, give me a sec. She says, okay, bet. She says, come now? Question mark, question mark, question mark. 8:40 p.m. So now it's September 24th at 3 a.m. She says, happy birthday, babe. I know you don't want cringy shit, but I want to tell you how much you mean to me. You're the only person who's been there for me this long, and you do so much for me. I wish I could spoil you like you spoil me. You literally are the best. I can't believe we met so damn long ago. I feel like it's last month where we were laying on the dugout roof talking for hours. I'm so glad we met. I love you, babe. Thanks for everything, and I'm gonna make today a good day. He says, I'm really sad. And by the way, there was still hella glass on the floor. I just cleaned the rest up. She says, why are you sad, babe? Want to FaceTime for a little? It's 3:25 a.m. He says, I broke my TV and there's glass on my door. And I broke my nice TV for no reason. Kenzie says, I'm sorry, babe. I know it sucks. I feel like you shouldn't think too much about it. Dom says, nah, I just suck. 19 isn't going anywhere. Neither is 20. Kenzie says, babe, don't say that. Dom says, or any other year of my life. Kenzie says, you're 1 year closer to being a millionaire, a billionaire. Dom says, yeah, no, all that shit overplayed. My mom said I'll never do it and to just go back to college. Kenzie said, oh my God, why would she say that? You're the smartest person I ever met, Dom. Dom says, pretty much what she said. Kenzie said, well, it's a lie. You will be rich as fuck one day. Dom says, she doesn't think I'm gonna make my own money without school unless it's illegally. Kenzie says, so many people do it. Why can't you? Babe, you tell me all the time and how I shouldn't work a job my whole life every day. Like all those books you read. You know how to be successful. You already are on the way there, babe. He says, I'm just a kid who throws temper tantrums. And you know that. Dom, that's what Dom says. Kenzie says, babe, it's not your fault. Getting mad isn't stopping you from being successful. You're smart as shit. You already found ways to keep your anger on the low. Dom says, no, not really. She says, and I know sometimes I can stress you out a lot, but I never mean to. I usually just want to be with you. No, you stress him out a lot, Kenzie. He says, this isn't helping, Kenzie. I still feel like shit. She says, babe, I want to help you. He says, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'll probably just keep working for real. Kenzie says, I wish you would look at yourself how I see you. You're special, babe. You deserve a day to relax and do whatever you want and not be on schedule. He says, yeah, but what am I going to do? Nothing. Go out to eat food and that's going to hurt my stomach. She says, I mean, you could do anything. Babe, I'll do whatever you want tomorrow. Dom says, I'm just going to make more bread and God will watch me extra that day. She says, whatever makes you happy because I will always be right there with you. I feel so bad. I almost want to cry. I wish I was with you right now. Kenzie, cut it out, you fake ass. Cut the shit out. I'm sick of it. Oh my God, they're stressing me out. Meow, meow. Kissies for you. That crash was a temper tantrum. Yes, Joker. Exactly. Thanks for being here, beautifully broken. She says, I just wish I was with you right now. Dom says, why? She says, I just feel bad because you deserve so effing much. Dom says, I'm honestly a terrible person. Kenzie says, like, you're my world, babe, and you're shitting on yourself like you are. Literally the most unique person I've ever met, and you're so effing smart. Just because you get mad sometimes doesn't mean you're terrible. I could never look at you as a terrible person. Dom says, I've been terrible to everyone I know. She says, babe, no, you haven't. Like, you versus Mad is not the same person and will never be. Babe, I for real won't go to school tomorrow so I can be there for you. I wish you would FaceTime me or call me. He says, no, just go to school. She says, babe, you need to not be so hard on yourself. He says, I need to change my ways. She says, everyone does, babe. Actually, like, Dom at least realizes this stuff, but she's like, everyone does. No, Kenzie, that's when you say, I do too. Like, I need to change my ways. It's, you know what I mean? She says, everyone does, babe. Please listen to me when I tell you that you're special. I love you, babe. I want you to cheer up. You deserve happiness. She says, I'm going to stay up until you cheered up. Dom says, no, I'm not going to be cheered up. She says, don't let anyone tell you that you're not going to make it. Babe, it's your day. Please cheer up. She says, babe, FaceTime me. Let's talk. He said, no, all my birthday did was make problems. Kenzie says, but it didn't. It's just another day. Don't even look at it like your birthday. Babe, I'm going to be really uncomfortable going back to sleep, leaving you like this. Let me be there for you. He says, I broke my TV and my bong. She says, babe, I can get you a new bong. It won't be the same memories, but I can get it for you. Dom says, like, I just threw a couple hundred away. Kenzie says, I know, and that sucks, but you shouldn't keep thinking about it or you're just going to feel shitty. Like, you can replace everything. And you got that TV on Christmas, right? Like, I can get you a new TV or a new rig. Babe, please let me help you. He says, no, I think I got it when I broke my last TV. She says, I think you got it on Black Friday or Christmas. He says, no, I'm going to just work tomorrow for real. She says, not all day. Dom says, I'm going to just keep working. She said, if that makes you happy, then go for it. But I feel like you deserve a day off. You work every day. You've been working so long too. She says, babe, I want to FaceTime you. He says, I don't want to. I'm sorry. She says, please let me be there for you. I'm trying so hard to cheer you up. Did you ever even go to sleep? Did what I sent you on Snap make you a little bit happier? Dom says, okay, I'm cheered up. Thank you. She says, don't lie to me. You promise? He says, yeah. She says, okay, I'll believe you, but only a little. LOL. She says, what do you want me to do? Because you're my main focus right now. Dom says, I want you to get enough sleep and go to school tomorrow. She said, well, I'm kind of sad because I wish I was with you all cuddled up. I could probably sleep in a little. He says, just don't smoke any weed. It's not going to help. She says, babe, I care about you a lot. I just want to let you know. He says, you won't wake up. She said, I'm comfy AF. I'm not getting up. But read that big paragraph I sent you if you didn't. Remember, don't let anyone tell you that you're not going to make it. Because I know you are. Dom says, right now, I don't know. She says, right now you don't, but you tell me all the time you will be rich. So stop telling yourself you're not because one person said you weren't. She says, babe, I love you. He says, yeah, but like, even if I didn't get rich, what then? Nothing. It doesn't mean anything if I'm not happy. Kenzie says, how do you know you won't be happy? You're still a kid until like 25. You have so much time. Dom says, I don't remember being fully happy. Maybe when I was little. She said, most people aren't, babe. Life gets much better. Dom says, yeah, when I was a little kid, I was happy at times. Kenzie says, it always will. Dom says, it really doesn't. Don't get your hopes up. She says, it does though. He says, you wouldn't know. She says, last summer, I was so effing sad for weeks straight. I hid my sadness with happiness. I do know. I've had anxiety since I was like 3 years old. You've had anxiety since you were 3 years old. Thank you, meow, meow. Meow, meow. You're the best, meow. Angel got it. Welcome, Angel, to membership. Thank you, meow. You're the best. Always stay supporting me. Love you. Melly's great reading. Thank you, Evie. she's made it about her. It makes me sad when Dom has these moments. It really does. That's a concerning perspective. You're a kid until you're 25, right? You know what's really crazy, actually, Lakeside, that you say that, because in the appeal, it was saying something about how, she's not of age yet and she's still a kid. So I guess just thinking about it like after the fact, it's a little weird. I really miss this so much. Weird hearing for a second time. It's different, right, Monica? We read this the first time around. It's different when you get all this other information and we've actually like gone through them one time and we've seen her Snapchats, and I'm going to do a live about her TikToks because we have like 200 TikToks to go through. Because you're in his life, Kenzie. Yeah. It's different when you understand when you were here for the first time. And this is weird. She says 3 years old. Anyways, I got distracted. She says she had anxiety since she was 3 years old. Like, do you remember that? Or are you just saying that, Kenzie? Because if you think you did have a terrible childhood or maybe anxiety in your childhood, like, I want to know a little bit more about that. Like, what role does Steve and Natalie play there? I'm just curious. I don't believe things are what they make them seem. I think Steve and Natalie have a different dynamic and they don't. It's like we saw earlier. If you guys missed the live earlier, we went over the appeal and we went over the trial, the sentencing and the impact statements. And Natalie just went up there, if you think about it, and she just wanted to defend Kenzie. She said, yeah, I'm sorry to the victims, but she was more about what people thought about them. Like, she went up there and she's like, oh, the social media, the modeling message. And it's like, Natalie, even the judge said, like, we're hearing a lot of me, and about your daughter, but nothing about the victim. And it's very much giving this. What I'm trying to say is, like, I guess, I think their familial dynamic is not what it seems. They try to make it seem. That's what I'm trying to say. Dom says, anxiety, happiness, and sadness, all different things. Kenzie says, anxiety brings me sadness and happiness, makes me emotional as shit. Please trust me, babe. I feel like you should just go to bed. Dom says, I can't look at my phone much longer. My eyes are going to get messed up. She said, of course, that's okay, babe. You can't FaceTime me? You can FaceTime me if you want. I'll be here just one call away. Dom says, wish I wouldn't have broke my TV. She says, how much is your TV? Dom says, I don't know. I don't care. It's a waste of money. She says, when I start my job, I'll get you a new one. He says, I don't really use it. No, that's wasting money. He says, just our word that I broke my nice one. She says, babe, I'm not wasting money because it's for you. But I don't want to make your eyes hurt. Please try to sleep too. He says, I don't know what to do. She says, with what, babe? Dom says, I got up and vacuumed the glass earlier. She emphasized her message. What about it, babe? She says, I can't get comfy. He says, me either. It's 4:19 a.m. She says, my neck's just hurting. Dom says, I'm just laying on my shoulder and it's sore. She says, why is it sore? Are you sure you don't want to FaceTime for a little bit? Dom says, I don't know. I don't know what that will do. She says, just talk for a little. Help us get tired. He says, I don't know if that will help. She says, we can try. What you think? He says, I won't be able to see anyways. She says, we can just talk. He says, I'm trying to think of why I'm sad. Actually, I'm done. I'm done with my brain. That's not even what I was thinking. She says, come on, FaceTime me. Get your mind off shit. Dom, please let me cheer you up. He says, I told you I was cheered up. She emphasizes her message. Well, then let's talk. She says, I can't sleep now either. He said, basketball is on and I can't even watch. I even have a headache. Kenzie says, I'm sorry, babe. I wish I was with you. He says, nothing you can be sorry about. She says, I just feel bad. Dom says, all right, I'm done being sad. She says, okay, good. Then it's 6:31 a.m. Morning, babe. He says, good morning, babe, at 8:14. Why do you have to steal my jackets? Kenzie says, I wore it home, babe. How's your day going? Dom says, terrible. I just got up. I'm just going to work today. She says, it will get better. I'm in my first class right now. Dom says, I really don't care. She says, okay. You don't need to be mean to me for no reason. Like, I'm just trying to cheer you up. He says, sorry that I said I don't care if my day gets better? Question mark? Question mark? She says, can I walk over after school at 1:37 p.m.? He said, when is that? She said, 2:30, I think, around then. He said, I don't know. I'm just laying in bed. I haven't ate breakfast either. She says, I'll make you food. We can make pancakes. Dom says, pancakes have a bunch of sugar and they're weird in my stomach anyway. Kenzie says, want me to get pulp? Dom says, no, that wouldn't fill me up either. I ate part of a banana. It wasn't good. She says, I can get you anything you want, any food. He says, I don't care what I want. Nothing sounds good. She said, cereal? Question mark. I'll for real get you anything. He says, I have cereal here that I can make. She says, are you saying you don't want to hang with me? Dom says, I don't know what I want to do. She says, I want to hang with you today, sad face. Come on, babe. I'm going to have to walk home. He says, I just feel like there's no point of anything today. She says, there is, babe. Stop talking like that. We can just go do nothing and play Brawl Stars. I don't want to walk home. Dom says, I don't want to play that. I was just going to play last night, but it seemed R word as AF. You guys say, I'm not saying grape when I say the R word. I'm saying RETARDED. I don't like saying that word. She says, literally, stop being a martyr. Cheer up. I've been trying so hard for like 15 hours. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm trying to come hang out with you and make you happy. Dom says, you don't have to do anything. She says, let me come over. He says, and then what? She said, why does it always need to be something? I can't just come and chill. I want to just come hang and see you. Dom says, how can I face the enemies outside if I can't face them within myself? She says, please tell me if I'm the thing that's making you miserable. Yes. Yes, you are the thing that's making him miserable. Yes, you got it right. Damn it. A little too late. She says, please tell me if I'm the thing making you miserable. Because you make me feel like it's me. Doesn't respond. You're really about to not let me come see my babe on his day? Dom says no, and I don't know. She says, well, I'm going to have to walk home with no jacket if you don't want me to come. If you don't want to come. It feels like I'm really the issue. Oh, shit. He says, why is it my problem? Yeah, why is it Dom's problem? Kenzie, have your mama come pick you up. Footnote, Dom is hiding from Kenzie. Imagine not wanting to see your boyfriend or your girlfriend, partner on your birthday because they're so overbearing. So sad. He says, why is it my problem? And it's warm AF outside. Kenzie said, it's not. Dom says, I was hot with a jacket. Kenzie says, like, I'm going to be passing your house. Do you not want to see me that bad? Like, I dressed up for you. Dom questions her message. Passing your house. If I walk home, Dom says at 2:14 p.m. Kenzie, it's not that I don't want to see you. It's that I literally feel like shit and see no point at all of doing today or the next day or the day after. I've left my bed twice today and I have a headache and my back hurts. She said, that's not good talk, babe. I want to be there for you. I'll rub your back. Please let me be there for you. Dom says, I can't face the enemies outside if I can't even face the enemies within me. Kenzie says, I don't get what that means. Like, please let me come see you. I've been so excited all day. We don't have to do anything. Dom says, that's not it. Kenzie said, please, babe. Like, I really want to see you. I don't like how you're talking. You're worrying me. I won't even say anything. We can just lay. I'll get you whatever food you want. Dom says, I don't want to do that. She says, so you're really not going to let me come see you? Dom says, right now, I just wanted to lay alone till I figure out how to feel better. Kenzie said, can we please hang sometime today? Please. It makes me upset thinking about not seeing you on your birthday. I don't want to go home when you're over there sad AF. Dom says, if I go to Kyle's later, we could probably hang. I might bail though. She says, don't bail, even if you don't want to. Please. Dom says, it all started yesterday after I broke my TV. She says, it will be good. Trust me. That's why I feel like this is all my fault. Yes, Kenzie, it is your fault. You guys were fighting and you made him break his bong and his TV. Thank you, Kite Thrower. Yes, please like the live. Tap the like button, guys. Please, please, please. Here we go again. We sipping tonight, or are we not? Were we not in the organic air only phase yet? We sipping. I've been sipping. You already know. You already know, though. She lived down the street. She was always in the vicinity. It gives me a little bit of anxiety, and maybe that's a me thing, but like the fact that she's living down the street, I can't even believe it. Because she's always wanting to hang out and see him. She says, this is why I feel like this is all my fault. Dom says, why would I go do something if I don't want to? Kenzie said, because it's good. You've been laying there all day. You've been laying all day all sad. She says, you deserve to have a little fun. Please, babe. He says, this isn't helping. This is making me reject your way of thinking more. She says, thanks, Dom. He said, that wasn't an insult, but okay. She says, well, I'm leaving now, so this is your last chance. Dom says, I want to say yeah, but I feel like a bum still. Kenzie said, it's okay if you feel like that. Please, just let me come. She says, I'm outside. She fucking just shows up at his house. Monica says, I need to know if Ellie's going to be live. Maybe a text or phone call. That's funny, Monica. I'm sorry. I'm sorry YouTube doesn't send out notifications. The Discord, I don't know if you guys have Discord, but I'm thinking of releasing that to members only. Only have like a couple people in there. Because the Discord can get crazy. There's a lot of drama there. I had to kick everyone out. Leave him alone. I know. Stalker. Yeah. She says, I'm outside. He says, outside where? She says, school. I'm walking towards home. He says, okay. And that ends at 2:28 p.m. Next morning, she says, morning, babe, on the 25th. He says, good morning, baby, at 9:18 a.m. She says, about to leave to Polaris. I have no school at all today. Dom says, that's dope. So if you guys are confused, Polaris is her cosmetology school. So she has two different schools. Dom says, that's dope. She says, wanna hang? It's 10 fucking a.m. Can you let him wake up and like shower? Like wash his ass, eat some food? I don't know, like normal human things. She's like, I can't with her and texting like this early in the morning. Kenzie, like, don't talk to me until I have my coffee. Really? Is the ick? Is the ick? Meow meow. Is the ick. You got that right. Dom says, I don't know if I want to go to Trevor's and maybe hoop today. She says, well, if you're hooping at home, I'll watch. Or we can hang after you do that. Dom says, I don't want to shoot the ball for 10 minutes. I actually want to get exercise. She says, want to just hang after? What the hell, Emily? Let us know when you're coming on. Tomorrow we'll be live all day too. Until the wheels fall off, baby. Get ready. He wants to have a good birthday. She ruined his birthday. This is why he wants to spend it with the people he actually likes. I agree. I agree. She says, wanna just hang after? He says, probably. She says, okay, yay. Let me know what's going on. He said, for sure. She said, snap. He says, what about it? She says, when should I be over? Also, snap. ASAP. She questions her message. He says, I don't know. I'm coming home from Trevor's now. Still have to shower. It's 4:10 p.m. now. She says, I'm going to get a Lincoln. All blacked out. I'm pretty sure. And how should I dress for tonight? Dom says, I don't know. I haven't showered yet. I don't know if I should wash my hair. She said, when's the last time you washed it? Dom says, I don't know. She said, just wash it. Do I wear a dress? Dom says, come over whenever. If you want to, but probably the tight dress if so. She says, I'm gonna wear a different dress than the red one. A blue one. Dom said, what? She says, I'm gonna wear a blue dress. Dom said, let me see it. She says, and I'll probably be over in 1 hour. I'll send a pic in a sec. She said, Dom says, okay, try to be sooner if you can. She says, I can't find a pic. Dom says, LOL. She says, I'm gonna be over sooner. I'm gonna dress really cute for you, she says. Dom says, okay, bet. She says, see you in a sec. She says, on the way at 6:00 p.m. He sends her a link to the cars. She's looking to get a new car, but she doesn't have a damn job or anything. So I don't even think she has a license yet. Does she have her license yet? Did we already go through that? No, I don't think we have. Stoner brain. Anyways, she says on the way at 6:00 on 9:25. Then it jumps to the next morning at 11:00. He's sending her links to cars. She says, send another one. The first one you showed me. Dom says, the Buick? She says, yes. He sends her the cars. 3 links. She says, shit. Last one is nice. Dom says, I'll look when I see you in a sec. She says, okay, bet. She says, I'm out. What are you doing now? He said, just rolled him a fat ass blunt, about to dip out soon. She says, dip where, babe? You're at Kyle's, right? She says, at 2:50 p.m. Dom says, here at 3. Yeah, I was with AJ and Tyler. She says, okay, bet. When you're done, come here. Dom says, I'm here. I'm at your house. Come out, let's go get some food. She says, when? Just coming out. She says, someone's behind us now. Never mind. That was at 6:57 p.m. Then it jumps to the next day at 8:31. She says, oh my God, my phone is effed. I'm on my iPad. What are you doing today, babe? She says at 11:23 a.m. He says, right now, just texting. I got to shower soon. He says, I might make more edibles. She says, can I come help? He says, maybe. She says, let me know, babe. I just drove on Pearl and Royalton and Prospect. Isn't Prospect D where they crashed? I can't remember. We love our Melly. Oh, not me crying. Thank you, Jakey. Love you too. Thank you for supporting me and being here for 6 months. I really do appreciate all of y'all for hanging out. This chat's always fun. And our after darks, oof, don't get me started. How's a bad girl? Bad Melly. Okay, let's move on. She says, I just drove on Pearl and Royalton Prospect. Dom says, did you drive good? She says, yes. Hella good. He says, LOL, nice. He says, I need breakfast. What do I eat? She says, I had what is that? Does she mean prosciutto? Prohuda? An egg. Dom says, that doesn't help me. Kenzie says, well, you could make that. Dom says, I'm gonna make something. Kenzie said, bacon again. Or, then she says, Dom, at 3:41 p.m. He says, what's up? He sends her a couple links. She says, I'll be over soon at 8:03 p.m. Wait, is it still the same day? Yeah. She says, I'll be over soon at 8:03 p.m. He says, can I go smoke with my cousin? Actually, we can just chill. She says, can I come with? I'm gonna come back soon though. Dom says, no, I'll probably just smoke with Sheesh. Smeesh. Sheesh. I forgot Smeesh's name. Sorry. Dom says, we can chill though. She says, I'm confused. So can I come over when I'm on the way home? She says at 8:22 p.m. He says, yeah. She says, okay, bet. Next morning at 6:38. She says, morning, babe. Oh my God. Did you sleep through your alarm? She says, where are you at? Dom says, here at stop sign. She says, 10:50 when it ends. Dom says, okay. What time should I be to Polaris by? 10:50? So he dropped her off and is picking her up. She says, yes, come. She says, are you coming? Let me know when you're close or leaving. He says, I'm about to be on Prospect, still like 10 minutes. My bad, forgot gas money. She says, it's okay, babe. He says, okay. She said, just hurry. I don't want to be the last one here. Dom says, okay. He says, I am. She says, hurry. My friend won't leave till you're here. Dom says, you're fine. I'm in Metro Parks. Kenzie says, hurry. He says, about to be there. And that was at 11 a.m. He says at 5:12 p.m. So it jumps a couple hours later. He says, I'm so mad. I didn't even have my shoes. Kenzie says, oh my God, what's happening now? Dom says, I don't know. I'm home now. She says, you still want to hang? Dom says, yeah. Kenzie says, yay. Want me to come now? When can I come? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Dom says, I don't know. She says, babe, do you not want to hang anymore? He says, I've been in a pissy mood. Kenzie said, it's okay if you don't want. You can still drive me to school tomorrow, right? Dom says, yeah. You can come over if you want, he says at 7:30 p.m. She said, right now? Do you want me to come? Now? Question mark. He says, yeah, you can leave now. She says, okay, bet. On the way. I know you... Wait, she says, on the way at 7:45. This is when Natalie Shirilla should have like stepped in and tried to make sure that her underage daughter, who's supposed to be living under her roof and, she's supposed to be caring for her, like you birthed her in the hospital. She's your daughter now. Like, this is when Natalie should have made sure that she had extracurricular activities, because all of these texts this whole year, all of 2020, Kenzie has done nothing but focus on Dom. She has no hobbies. She doesn't do anything for her health. She doesn't do anything with her family. When do you hear her saying like, my mom wants me home? Birthday this, birthday that. Like she has nothing, is why I think she became so obsessed with Dom too. One of the factors. Cheers, Ruth. Hey, Irony. Hope work is going good. She says on the way at 7:45 p.m. Then at 8:54, Kenzie says, I know you see me in your room. Like a creep at 8:54 p.m. Then it jumps to the next morning, 6:50 a.m. Morning. She sends a TikTok link. He says, you so cute. She says, I miss you. Dom says, I miss you, baby. Kenzie says, I love you, babe. Dom says, I love you too, babe. He says, I'll pick you up, baby. So be there at 10:50. Kenzie said, yes, bet. Dom says, I'm here at 10:46. I'm early. I'm by where I dropped you off. Kenzie says, bet. I'll be out in 2 minutes. Dom says, I'm out here. She says, I'm coming right now. He says, I'm by like where you first pull in. And that was at 10:52 a.m. She says, where are you at? She says, I guess I was late today. Dom said, what time did your class start? Kenzie said, I for real don't know. It said 12. So I'm confused. Dom says, you should ask them. Kenzie says, I will after class, babe. Dom says, okay. She says, want to drive me home? at 2:31 p.m.? Babe? She says, I'm passing right now. No response. LOL, you left me on red, babe. He says, I'm sorry. Yeah, I got you real quick. I'm chilling with Blair and Kyle. She says, never mind. I got a ride. He says, okay, bet. She says, should I get a tan? Yes or no? Dom says, yeah. She says, what are you doing at 6:26 p.m.? He says, about to go smoke with those kids. She says, I want to home. I want to home one of these times. I think there's a typo. She says, I'm dark AF right now. Dom says, I don't know if I want you to meet them. I don't know how much longer I'm going to associate with them. Kenzie says, oh, for real? Dom says, yeah, I might have B deal with them. Kenzie says, I'm getting Shinto at 6:51 p.m. Dom says, ooh, gas. She says, I know, right? I'm excited. Dom said, yeah, the rice hasn't been as good lately, though. She says, I've been liking it, LOL. Dom says, you don't get the fried rice. Kenzie says, yeah, I know. And that was at 7:19 p.m. He says, good night, baby, at 11:13 p.m. He says, do I gotta drive you tomorrow? She says, I have no school all day, babe. He says, yay. The next morning on September 30th at 8:35 a.m. He says, can I get my surprise? She says, morning, babe. You can get your surprise. Dom says, what about my slides? Where are those? Kenzie said, they're still on the way from Italy. You want me to come over, babe? She says at 9:12 a.m. He said, damn, that's taking a while. He said, yeah. She said, I know, it's annoying. I want them to come. Kenzie says, and I'll come right now. Give me a sec to put my lashes on. Dom says, okay. And that was at 9:17 a.m. Then at 5:16, she says, what are you doing? He says, smoking with my cousin. She says, I'm getting my car. Dom says, nice. She says, want to hang again? He says, yeah, later. She said, let me know when you're home. He said, bet. She says, I want to hang, babe. He says, okay, babe. She says 2 hours later, what are you doing? He said, just got home. You want to come over and bring pulp? She says, yeah, I can, but give me a minute because I don't know what I'm gonna wear tomorrow. She says, get me. Oh, FaceTime me. Dom says, no, you come. She says, I'm gonna come, babe, and bring pulp. I just don't know what to wear. Do you still want me to come over? She says at 7:21 p.m. He says, get large. And if something has headache relief, let me know. I have a bad headache. She says, give me fruit. He says, or get two again. There's typos here. He says, I have a headache at 7:24 p.m. and I feel like pulp will help. I'm craving. She says, okay, bet. She says, give me fruit flavors. Oh, fruit flavors for the smoothie. Uh, oh, that's hilarious. She says, give me fruit flavors. He questions her. She says, what fruit do you want? He says, probably not orange or apple, like pineapple, banana, lemon, lime, or something like that. Maybe some mango. She says, okay, bet. And then he says, good night, baby, at 9:50 p.m. So a few hours later. She says, good night, babe. I'll see you tomorrow. He says, okay, baby. Okay. We're going to stop there. We did it. Holy shitballs. We got through all of September. Woot woot, we're in October. Wait till we get to 2021. It gets insane. If you thought this was crazy, buckle down. You don't even know what's coming. It's going to be weird when he falls in love with her. Now we get to see what happens. Is it just real to shut her up? Green Knight says, keep going. Just kidding. We have another live after this. So for those of you that are late nighters, we have Sarah Boone after this. So Green Knight, let's hop on over there. Thank you, Melly. Thank you guys. 3.5 hours later. Wow. That's crazy because remember, they're texting via text, they're texting via Instagram, they're texting via Snap, and via TikTok, and then she still FaceTimes him and calls him. So it's a lot. It's a lot. We still have to finish Instagram messages too, so I'll have to get that ready for tomorrow. I just wanna get through those, we keep not finishing them. I'm gonna catch up on replay. Yes, catch up on replay. Yeah. Tonight? Yes, Drakey, after this. Catch up on replay. We did the appeal, kind of went over it a little bit, and then we watched the parts of the sentencing. So definitely go back and replay that. Great job, Melly. Thank you. Thank you, 𝗏𝗀. Thanks all of you for being here. Please hit the like button on the way out. I will be scheduling another Kenzie live tomorrow. I plan to be live early to catch up. She was having randos take her test for her. She's awful in school. She is. Social media is a devil. I know. Thanks, Melly. Good night. Thank you, Monica. What about Kay Fitzsimmons? Yes. We have Kelsey Fitzsimmons live tomorrow before trial. Her trial should only be 3 days or so. So we're gonna watch it. We have we have Kenzie tomorrow. We have Kelsey. We have Lindsay. We have 𝗲𝐺𝐵𝐶. So turn on your notifications. The sentencing was wild. Yeah, it is. She's cray cray. Absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. By the way, you're like, thank you, meow meow, and thank you for gifting. You're the best. Oh, Q, I didn't see you gifted. Hello, Q. Oh my God, who won it? Who got it? Carnell Williams. Okay, thank you, Q. I appreciate you. Thank you, meow meow, too. All of you who support me. I love and appreciate all of you guys. Gypsy Rose kiss. Okay, let's go. Yes. I'm over here dicking around about Gypsy Rose. Let's see. We have Sarah the Boon, the Loon. Yeah, I'll see you guys in a little bit. We have Sarah Boone. Late night fun. I was losing my shit. Don't lose your shit. Epstein. Oh, we have Epstein too. I can't forget. We have Epstein tomorrow coming up. Be prepared. Anyways, shout out to you guys. Thanks for being here. Make sure you tap the like button. Please, 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 please. Please hit the like button or I'm gonna block you. Just kidding. Love you guys. See you on the next one. Toodles. Don't forget, Sarah Boone. Later.
Try to hide away, so all they do is work. But nobody can hide once she gets a hold of that paperwork. So don't you dare come in here acting like a jerk. Dance might make her dance, but new court docs will make her wanna twerk. Dark hair shining in the Cali sun. Melly on the case, so no one and trying to run. You Sims can ask for feet pics, but you getting none. It's 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆 with Melly, let's have some fucking fun. So if you're feeling for true crime, like it's a drug, 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆 with Melly is your motherfucking plug. Going so hard on criminals, they'll call